With so much going on in the world, we need a unity and peace. Shouts out to his family. Yo, I'm just gearing up here. I got a lot going on, a lot of clutter here and updates. But it's Saturday night. We're going to do some spooky streaming. Are you ready? This is the intro. Rooks G. Special Saturday night spooky dark fall shouts out to Jason out there. Always a cat. Jerry, I saw you in here earlier. Exposing powerful lies. Somebody get him back in here. Let's give a shouts out to Ryan out there. Moldy, I see you right there. Big shouts out to Crystalline out there and Crystal. Cyberliminal. Shouts out to Rooks G out there, our homeboy who makes dope music. He's got more music coming out tomorrow. Rooks G, ROOXG. You can find him on SoundCloud, Instagram, YouTube. Make sure that you find his channels and sub to our friend out there. All right, what's up, y'all? Sorry for the little delay. A lot going on. It's dark fall, dark autumn, spooky season, Spooktober, Razor Apple month. Pumpkins are everywhere. Leaves are changing. Nice, cool, crisp day. Rainy, dark. It was a little warmer than I wanted it to be. Why don't we talk about the weather for 3 hours? Because it's dark weather, and that means that, well, that signifies dark circumstances, dark future, dark past. Because for this installment of our little series here for our spooky season, right, we're going to cover William Peter Blatty. All right, and specifically, we're going to be looking at the text for the ninth configuration. Okay, if you've heard of this, you may have heard of the movie. It's an avant-garde artistic piece for cinema, and it's okay. I mean, they did the best they could for adapting the novel, but the book is I was really surprised. I mean, I was blown away by how layered I thought this book was. I didn't know William Peter Blatty's work. I knew the films and stuff, but I didn't know his texts. And it's interesting because it's right up my alley, right up our alley. Really, what we've done on this channel is it's always a prerequisite for the next work, and it turns out this is the same because Julius Caesar, Hamlet, Macbeth, Shakespeare. I mean, there is a wealth of literature within the literature in this book. Literary allusions abound, and we're also going to discuss the underrated. I guess I don't know if I would say underrated. Maybe cult classic. I think people are coming around to it for various reasons. But the film Exorcist III, right? We're going to discuss that tonight with George C. Scott. Well, he won't be here. I think he's passed away. But he lived in Virginia. Did you know that? George C. Scott. And trained at he worked at the Barter Theater in Northern Virginia. But anyway, he is great in Exorcist 3. I mean, he's very good. And again, it's a layered work. The film is done well. It's based on Blatty's book Legion, and it's a different take. I mean, it follows directly from the original Exorcist film, right? They kind of ignored the second Exorcist, which I think has Richard Burton and a grown Regan, and I think that movie has some revelatory stuff in it, but the third film follows from the first film directly, and it's interesting because everybody here knows that Exorcist III, of course, was a personal favorite of your boy Jeffrey, right? Jeffrey Dahmer, who got that old broomstick in the end, right? As Norm said, Norm Macdonald. Shouts out to Norm Macdonald, R.I.P. And yeah, it was one of his personal favorite movies, and it's got Brad Dourif in it in a great role, kind of a double role. And it's of course about possession, but it's a different take on it. And it's I mean, it's surprising how funny and how light the movie is, actually. It's got humor. It's got some really nice, I mean, George C. Scott's character is like well developed, and he's funny, and he's well read, and he's literary, and he's a different kind of detective, of course, but he's also he's haunted and he's troubled, just like all the heroes are, the anti-heroes in films now. And one thing is that the film, just to skip to the end here, it doesn't really spoil anything, but there's a part in the book that is not in the film, and that is that George C. Scott's character says at the end that he thinks this is his thesis. Okay, you ready? You guys are going to love this one. It's right up, we've talked about this in every film. It's like this. He says in the book that he thinks that the Big Bang was the fall of Lucifer from heaven, or the expulsion from heaven, and that the rest of creation and time is the fallen Satan trying to put himself back together. That's what he says in Legion. Right? Which is very dark, and this is pure Gnosticism, of course. And I think that don't let that stop you, right? Don't let that kind of, we've seen this in we always see this. And it's it's an interesting sort of poetical idea, whatever. But I think that the film is layered, and it asks some interesting questions and has some interesting angles on the serial killer phenomena and DID and MPD. It's pretty interesting, and Brad Dourif is amazing. He's so good in this movie. He's in it very little. He's in a straitjacket the whole film. He's in it for like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes of screen time, and he's so good. It's like Shakespearean how good he is, I think. So anyway, where should we start, you guys? First of all, yeah, and also, by the way, I rewatched Lost Boys today for the millionth time, and I've been listening to. I'll admit this. I've been listening to the song "Cry, Little Sister, Thou Shalt Not Fall." Cry, little sister, la la la. So the song has la la's in it. Remember, Jamie talked about the la la's in horror movies. Right. Rosemary's Baby. La, 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 la. Which is like this, this horror trope of a identical cloned, hell choir of demonic children, right, in a cornfield. That's not Rosemary's Baby, but, that's what I think of. And I think that I don't know. Maybe they got the chorus for that song for "Cry Little Sister" from the La-Las, but they just didn't want to do the La-Las anymore. You should read the lyrics to that song. If you've listened to it, let's say, I don't know, I probably listened to it like 49,101 times in the past 2 days. Now that's hyperbole, but like I will listen to a song over and over and over and over. It's really good. It's a great song. But I was just trying to get a take on the lyrics, and it's pretty interesting because in the context of the film, when the song occurs, it occurs like 3 times in the movie, and each time it's kind of like it functions as like a sort of weird hymn for the new vampires, if that makes sense. Even though it says "Thou shalt not kill," which is interesting, right? But it also says "Thou shalt not die." It sounds like they're saying "Thou shalt not fall." It just sounds like they're saying that 4 times over and over. But you missed, sucker. Death by stereo. I love that. Do you guys like that movie? Do you guys like Lost Boys? You remember that Lost Boys was like the original JD Jamie Spooktober analysis film. That was the subject. You guys remember that? Are you guys old school on the internet? Um, and one more thing. Shouts out to who else? Do you guys follow Sam on Instagram? If you don't, whatever. But like his content, those 2 videos that he put out yesterday and today are, I mean, oh my gosh, like because World Peace 2 is coming out soon, and I don't know, I don't want to sit here and spurg out about how big a fan I am and how excited I am for for it to come out, but like it really is. I mean, it's so next level. It's hard for me to get a grip on it. And because the latest video they they solved the crisis, right? Um, if you walking around demonetized, I ain't with that. So that was good. What else? Before we begin, like, I mean, I don't. We could just get straight into the analysis if you want, but I kind of feel like chilling for a second. What a long week. Hey, you guys, what a bunch of events. Crazy. And it is kind of weighing heavily on the psychosphere for sure, even though I'm not even on Twitter or anything. But, and I don't want to discuss it like directly, but I will say that this morning I turned on the Boomer Tube, and I always turn it right on to what do we call it? Friends and Fox. Let's call it that. And I kind of tested myself. I was like, all right, what's going to be the time distance between when I turn it on and when I get blitzed with QAnon propaganda, right? And it literally was right away. Right when the sound came on, I was blitzed with 2 straight minutes of unbelievable Bernaysian straight up really a repeat, right, of 20 years ago, of 10 years ago, of 20 years ago, and then of, I guess, really first Gulf War. Same points, now with an increase in the loaded terms. And the person was like, they were calling in and they were talking about the thing that's going on right now. And it was just, it's absurd world because this person managed to fit in every single loaded term and phrase and expression within 2 minutes in one paragraph. It's all right. So that's my rant. That's what really grinds my gears, folks. And I don't even, it's whatever, right? I just think that it's, that we live in a time where the thing happens and everybody talks and then it happens again and everybody forgot, except for the high IQ Chads here, right? But all the terms were in there. And they were saying that, they were in the middle of the zone where the action was happening. And then at the end, she said, yeah, I'm in my apartment in New York. So you're not in the zone, right? You're not in the thing. I guess at least at the end, she said, well, actually, I'm in my apartment. I'm not there at all. Now, that may sound totally cryptic if you walked into that and you have no idea what I'm talking about. But, just look at context, I guess. Right. So anyway, all right. So should we get to it, you guys? Let's talk about William Peter Blatty's The Ninth Configuration. Interesting title because does it remind you of The Ninth Gate with John Depp, which, by the way, is based also on a novel. It's based on what's the name of the book? Club Dumas, which is a book about there's like a secret club of they collect first edition rare books, right? Just like in the film, and they're going after an edition of Alexander Dumas novel that it ends up being a Ninth Gate Eyes Wide Shut party. It differs from the movie in many ways, but it's a good book. And the Ninth Gate, of course, is one of the like key films. 1999, Eyes Wide Shut, Ninth Gate, all these things right before Big Nine. But that's not what we're covering. We're covering the Ninth Configuration. And the original title for this was Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane. Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane. Which the title of that is kind of misleading because it is not like an It style, fairy tale from hell. It's actually not that at all. So the Ninth Configuration, the book, and then later the film, here's what it's about. I'll give you a rundown. So it begins at a mock German castle that's actually in Washington State. And it's one of those American things that was moved over here brick by brick from the old country. And that's quite common, especially in Virginia. There are a few places like that. Oh, this is my manor house. I moved it from the Cotswolds, brick by brick. They put it on a boat, right? Queen Elizabeth was here when we performed Hamlet. It's like, but we're in America, so that's weird. But anyway, they do this, and it's a gigantic German castle in Washington State. And can you predict if you don't know anything about this, can you predict who are going to be the residents of this castle? One hint is that it is martial. It is related to military. So who are they, you guys? I mean, honestly, I think if you're listening to this and you immediately think, something about Vietnam or mind control or MK Ultra or Phoenix program, if that comes to mind in the back of your mind somewhere, then congratulations, you've leveled up. Because like we read and we see so many of these things that it starts to become like part of the regular vernacular, right? And that is what happens. So it's a group of high IQ, various military branch men who are disengaged from combat or service for various reasons, right? And they're all together in this castle. And they are all insane or they're pretending to be insane. So you get the Hamlet sort of correlation here. And so then they bring in an astute Marine Corps psychiatrist. And Blatty is at the beginning of the book, his forward, he says, for the purposes of this story, I have taken some liberties with the facts. He said, punishment for there's no psychiatrist in the medical office in the Marine Corps. Is what he says at the beginning of this. And there probably is now. I don't know, but it fits the story. And we're going to see that actually he's kind of telling the truth there anyway in a meta level. So this they bring in this psychiatrist who's a colonel in the Marine Corps, and he's kind of mysterious. And they talk about him. All the guys they're insane. The people in this castle, the sort of insane core that they have, they're all like dressed in their pajamas and they're saying weird and wild shit. And they get them together for drill or whatever. And there's a guy yelling. There's a Sarge yelling at him, but they're totally insane. One of the guys has a NASA patch on his arm, and we learned that this guy. He's in there because he was one of the astronauts who was scheduled to go to the moon, and he called it off at the very last minute right before the launch. Something happened, and he snapped, and he scrapped the launch, which it kind of it reminds you of what's the astronaut's name, you guys, who died in the fire, right, during one of the launch sequences, and he had posted doom posted on 1950s, 60s Twitter um, a picture of like a lemon on a coat hanger. You remember that, dude? And they go, man, that's code. That's code, bro. You get that, and it's the lion's paw handshake, and it means that he knew that Kubrick. And that actually might be right. Who knows? But he was gone. This guy kind of has echoes of that guy. So he's in this. He's sort of one of the leaders. But yeah, it was Buzz Lightyear exactly. What was up with Buzz Lightyear in the recent film? Actually, I heard somewhere, so maybe you shouldn't say. All I know is I didn't see it, and I think that it's stunning and brave that Woody Lightyear and Buzz Lightyear can um, live out their truth together, right? In the rings of Saturn, because apparently, I mean, someone told me that's what they do, right? That they were such good buds that you know. Is that true? Has anybody seen it? Has anybody seen the recent Buzz Lightyear? It's not even Toy Story, is it? It's just Buzz Lightyear. And whatever, who cares? But yeah, so there's an astronaut, and so the colonel arrives, and his name is Colonel Kane, Kane, right? And he's a Kurtz of a man. I mean, this man is, of course, a giant. He's like this monolithic guy who kind of preserves his words for the necessary reactions. He's well read. He seems to be brilliant. He is metaphysical in his speech and seems to be religious in his inclinations because of the conversations that they have. And he is an imminent psychiatrist. And all he really does, by the way, is just respond to people when they talk in the way that, we see this psych community doing. You give they say a long thing about the problem. They say, interesting, tell me more. And that's kind of what he does. But there are times when he expresses his opinion, which I think is one of the fascinating parts of the book because, the average person is led to in the sort of debate or argumentation world, even in regular conversation, to think that being non-biased is the standard status quo for a person who wants to make an argument. When, in fact, we have beliefs and opinions, right? And we see that with our great debaters in our circles. And Kane sort of does that, but in a passive way. It's really interesting how Blatty sort of stages this. And also, the word stage is a pun because the inmates of this place are putting on a series of Shakespearean dramas for dogs. The actors are dogs. And so, anyway, the plot rundown, what happens is are they insane? Are they sane? Are they insane? And we don't really get a grip on what Kane is doing there, but he keeps having sort of weird conversations with one of the other psychiatrists. There's another guy who brought him in, and he experiences these weird moments where a kind of restrained emotion makes him go like withdraw into himself like at random times. And it seems like he's carrying a lot, right? Then he has these, of course, he goes to sleep and he has these dreams. And when he wakes up, I guess, the other guy comes in and he's like, this door's open and the medicine cabinet is unlocked. And have you seen inmate, inmate Insaney Delaney, right? Dana Delaney, totally insane. And he's like, yeah, last night, he was making a ruckus, disturbing the other patients, so I had to go get him his medication and then lock him up. But what's weird is like we don't see him do that. So, do you want the spoiler? Do you want to know what happens, you guys? What happens, do you think? Because there are a couple of guys there that have heard this lore about this guy Kane from their time in Nam. Of course, Nam, right? Yeah. I was 19 when I did that course. He was damn near twice my age. Why the fuck would he do that? Seems they didn't dig what he had to tell him. This guy basically is a sort of Colonel Kurt's, archetype, I guess, just in a different variation. Because what we learn is that, first of all, there's a scene. I'm gonna go back to it, but there's one scene in the novel where a guy like has a cane, a cane, and he does something sort of out of the ordinary with it, and the Dr. Kane, the psychiatrist, Colonel Kane, like grips it, and it's noticeable how how his grip is, because it seems to be like otherworldly, how it's an unbreakable grip, and he's got this huge, like Richard Kuklinski set of paw hands, right? And it's like it's a little weird, and because the inmates are insane, they'll just say what they think, if it makes any sense, and they'll be like, "I know you. You're not who you say you are. Something's wrong with you. I can see it in your eyes." Remember that scene in True Detective? I don't like your face. I can see your soul at the corner of your eyes. The only dude who instantly like has a take on Russ Cole, right, on Matthew McConaughey's character when he goes undercover. You guys remember that scene in True Detective? Who's seen True Detective? Come on, y'all. I can smell the psychosphere. I don't sleep, I just dream. But he goes into that bar and he meets with that dude in the deal they're setting up, right? And he's like, "Yeah, you can get the yayo from the locker at the station or whatever. Then we're gonna sell it. We're gonna sell it to the Warlocks and then the Straight Satan motorcycle gang. They're not a gang. They're a motorcycle club. They made me a member. They gave me their colors after I was in Vietnam." But the guy makes him, right? "I don't like your face," he says. "I can see your soul at the corner of your eyes." So it's the same in the ninth configuration, slightly different, but the language is elevated like that. It's poetical. And okay, here's the spoiler. Here's what happens, you guys. You ready? All right. Um, so the NASA guy escapes the castle and he goes to the local pub and he goes there for a drink, kind of on a self-destructive, sort of quasi mission. But he goes there and he has some drinks, and there is a gang of outlaw motorcycle perverts and creepers there, and they're whooping it up, having a good old time, listening to, like, what are they listening to? I don't know, Willie Nelson, right? Angel Flying Too Close to the Ground. That's actually a good song, so maybe they're not listening to that. They're listening to Jim Croce or something, right? And anyway, they start picking on old NASA guy, who's a real like pencil worm of a man. They pour beers on his head. They don't like that he's in the military. They start, like tossing him around in a weird way. Then they start punching him. Well, Colonel Kane notices that one of his flock is missing. So, being the good shepherd, because we find out he has a redeemer complex. That's one of his things that the other psychiatrist says that he has. I'll come back to that in a second. But he goes out and he goes to the bar, and he sees that he's getting picked on in there, right? Well, the other motorcycle guys, they say, "Look at this big fella." And they start picking on him. They pour beer on his head. They push him to the ground. And one of the guys even exposes his, he's a pervert, and he starts to do some Skittles things with the NASA guy, right? As a weird sign of Skittles dominance or whatever. Well, Kane is at this point, I think he's had like a bottle broken over his head. Well, he, of course, the glass breaks, right? The psychic glass breaks, and something snaps in his mind, and he Seagal style takes out the like entire bar. Right, a woman runs at him. She's gonna knife him. He just like puts her through a motherfucking wall like Peanut Arbuckle, right? And he just snaps another guy. I mean, he like kills a bunch of people and takes them out, right? And his eyes change. It's noticeable that his eyes blacken and sort of glaze over. And so he rescues the NASA guy. Well, anyway, they end up back in the castle. And the next day, Kane, who is supposedly a psychiatrist, right, he's catatonic. He's just not talking. And something's happened. And we find out, this is one of the parts of the book where it was kind of, I don't mean to like review it in terms of what I liked or didn't like, but I thought that the rest of the book was so masterful. I don't know why Blatty just sort of revealed, he revealed the secret to us in a kind of, there could have been more. I don't know, a different way. But we are told basically that Kane is not a psychiatrist, okay? And his name is not Hudson Kane. He's Vincent Kane. And the guy talking to us, right, he's Hudson Kane and he's his brother. And that Colonel Kane, who we thought was a psychiatrist, is not. And he was brought straight from a LERP maniacal, Phoenix program mission in Nam, where he had decapitated the Viet Cong that he killed was a boy, and with a wire. He was getting up close, right? Eyeball to eyeball, worthy fucking adversary. Hill 364. He was truly, he was a lone wolf, right? Killing dudes with a wire or whatever. And he had his head in his lap, and he broke. He had a psychic, split, and he doesn't remember it. He's in a fugue state, and they tell him that his mission is to be a psychiatrist, and he comes here, and his brother, this whole time, right, is working with him, and he doesn't recognize him. He has no idea who he is, but he is like living his role as this psychiatrist. It's very artfully done. But he did this whole thing as an experiment, really, to see what they could do to bring him back to his out of his alter state and into his, find his identity again. And that's very strange in the context of the book, because why spend the time to do this, right? If this was the real world, why would they spend the time to do this? Why wouldn't they just? Who cares, right? The guy accomplished the missions that they wanted. Well, it's because Kane is such an unusual guy. He's a colonel. He's a special forces. He's a Marine. I guess he's a Marine, so he's not. Are Marines Mac v SOG? I don't know if they were actually part of that. I know that they were involved with Phoenix program, but Marines are separate. So I guess he would be Marine Recon. Something like somebody tell me what he would be during Vietnam. But he's alone. They drop him behind enemy lines like true Phoenix program LERP style. And he just is told to go wreak havoc. And he does. He kills he also did the same thing in Korea. And Blatty mentions the experimentation on soldiers returning from Korea, which is like the origins of MK Ultra. You remember that? So part of this is that Hudson Kane is a military psychiatrist. That's his brother. And somehow he gets the orders approved. And right after this mission, when Vincent Kane, Killer Kane, is in the fugue state, he is put right on a plane and comes straight to Washington State to this weird, otherworldly German castle. Like, it seems like it's in the inner zone. And he just lives the role. He's like in the role. And that's because he, like the other inmates, is special. He's a high IQ, thinking, he's a poet warrior in the class. He's a poet warrior in the classic sense, man. You don't talk to the man. You listen to him, man. And a voice. Yeah, he's got plans for you, man. He's got plans for you. What is he going to say about me, man? That I was a wise man? That I was a kind man? That I had wisdom? Bullshit, man. You. All right, what's that from? Come on. Somebody tell me, what's that from? What's my off-the-cuff, full soliloquy? What film is that from? Do you live near the river? The Ohio River, sir? Uh-huh. Yes. When I was a boy, I went down that river with my father. There was a gardenia plantation. A gardenia plantation. He goes, uh-huh, which is not in the script. I think that's the weirdest line in the whole film. Uh-huh. Charlie didn't have R&R. His idea of R&R was some cold rice and a little rat meat. All right, go back and watch my Apocalypse Now analysis after this that I did with my friend Rollin a year ago. Shouts out to my friend Rollin out there. Shouts out to Buster out there. Shouts out to my sister and my good friend Andrew Healy, who's one of my oldest best friends. Shouts out to you, my boy. Shouts out also to Elias. And you guys, if you would keep him in your T's and P's, right? And in all seriousness, if you would say a prayer for his family. That's all I'm going to say on that. But I know that people are having hard times, especially in particular, our friend Elias. Shouts out to Mav M Space AV, who sponsored the stream, by the way, right? Whose brilliant idea it was to do the ninth configuration. And final shouts out to my good friend Kim, who introduced me to this film. And I didn't even know about this about a year ago. This William Peter Blatty. I'd never seen it. She put me onto this, and shouts out to Kim. I love you out there. Our thoughts and prayers. We want unity and peace. Shouts out to his family. All right, final question, final trivia before we get back into the serious work. Who said that phrase? I'll give you a hint. It was on a rooftop. There was music playing, and it was 3 years ago. Who said that? We want peace and unity. Shouts out to his family. Let's go. Music turned up. Who was it, you guys? It's a classic. While somebody finds that right answer, if you yeah, it was a DJ. If you know Jinx, if you knew Jinx back in the day, or if you followed Jinx, on Twitter, then you would know this. It was a DJ. Yeah, I think Toka's got it. Yeah, because you said that name. I'm not going to say the rest of that name that you just mentioned because of obvious, the things that we can't say here. But shouts out to his family. He was in a rooftop. Where was he? Paris? It was so awesome. What'd you say? He was on a rooftop. He was, yep. Camera was on. We need a unity and peace with everything going on. Shouts out to his family. Well, in all seriousness, there's a lot going on right now in the world. So we need peace and unity, right? And thank you for, I know everybody's thinking about that right now in the chat. Thank you for not, being spicy in there because you know how it is with all the stuff. Where's Jerry? Somebody get Jerry in here. Somebody drop him because did you guys see Jerry's stream last night, Exposing Powerful Lies? I dropped in there and I saw my boy. It was good to see him back here in this land, but also you should go to his Rumble, Exposing Powerful Lies, because that's my homeboy right there, and we love him. We love Jerry. So smart. He's a smart guy. He's very smart. I walked into this place and I said, look at this guy. He's very smart. He knows a lot of words. People, he knows a lot of words, right? He called me Your Eminence. I talked to him. I gave him a picture of his house, and he said, Your Eminence, we're gonna cease operations. Nobody had ever called me Your Magnificence, Your Eminence before. I doubt they call the president now. I doubt they call him that. I know it's a bad impression, you guys, but it's the best I can do. All right, so just the end of the plot rundown. Basically, it turns out that the psychiatrist Kane was actually the killer Kane, and he part of his thing is that it's interesting because he has a moral code and system, and what breaks him is what they forced him to do for his duty, right? He's very good at it, and he ends up going far and confronting the reality of his deeds ahead in his lap, right? He has destroyed innocence outside of himself, and he's crushed. And so the final his climax basically in the book is to walk back into a different sort of war zone, not knowing what's going on, and saving this guy who did not care anything about him. And that is what saves the astronaut guy, because he comes back to reality. he realizes that there is an instance of someone doing a selfless deed, because his whole hang up was that we live in a empty, meaningless universe where everyone is self-serving, and he couldn't find a single example of, a true selfless deed. And this was it, because Kane breaks. He writes him a letter, and then he what do we want to say? He does a kamikaze, right? And he writes in his letter that it is a kind of Roman style kamikaze, where he does this for the honor of what he sees as the honor of this other guy. He wants to give himself up for this other guy so that he can change. And it actually works. It's very well. It's pretty amazing how it makes sense in the in the paradigm of the strange reality of this book, because it is labyrinthine. You're trying to find out where you are, and the characters are wondering who they truly are. That's the entire book. And this guy finds himself again, but he finds himself because Kane brings him to himself. And that has another layer of irony here, because, of course, Kane, because that is not what Kane did, right? That's not the biblical Kane, but this guy does a sort of, I don't know, a crisscross, like Peter Griffin says, a weird kind of reversal in his mind of that deed, because he has this complex of, he wants to take on the sins of other people. He wants to save them, even though he's a human. He's a human man. Does that make sense? And so he dies, and then a few years later, the NASA guy, he walks out. They shut down the program. It's called Project Freud, of course. It wouldn't be something named like that. It would be, right, in reality, it would be what? Sub Project 119 MK Naomi or something. ZR Rifle. Remember, ZR Rifle was the name of the 1963 related program. But anyway, so time passes, and then we see him getting picked up, and he's groomed, and he's back to reality. He's a man again, and he gets in a military car, and he's taken away, and he has his honor back. And when he does that, somebody questions him about this infamous, Killer Kane. What was the deal with him? I heard he was here. He made his way here, even though we knew about him in he was in the shit, man. But nobody had ever seen him. And what was he like? And that gives the NASA guy basically a chance to say that the reason he did what he did on the launch pad was because he came to a point where he was facing his future, his possible future of floating in the emptiness of space, and he couldn't handle it because he didn't have an understanding, a religious grounding. It was a Jean-Paul Sartre existential crisis, and the abyss that he faced was the vast expanse of space and the moon, and he couldn't handle that. He said that was his. It's my dream. It's my nightmare. A snail crawling along the edge of a straight razor. Well, obviously, Colonel Kurtz has gone completely insane. He was a fine man, a decent, upstanding man. Willard goes to that little shack, right? I like that guy who's in charge, that general. Terminate with extreme prejudice. Captain, if you are willing to try these shrimp, you won't have to test your bravery in any other way. Harrison Ford drops the papers. Harrison Ford's in it. Did you guys hear Sam's take on Harrison Ford? Another tangent here. Listen, we're night streaming. We're Saturday night streaming. We do a little Saturday night streaming. I think we can riff. We can do whatever we want. So, chill. Take it easy. Jay posted it. It's great. Sam's film analysis take on Harrison Ford, which I think is totally accurate and unique, is that is that first of all, it's true. Harrison Ford is not a fan of the movies that he's been in. Right? Have you ever seen him in an interview? They're like, "What do you think about the Ewoks?" And he's like, he always cusses the very idea of the Ewoks. He doesn't like that shaman Ewok potentially sacrificing him on Endor. Right? He's traumatized by that. No, but he does not like the Endor. He doesn't like the Ewoks. He doesn't like the Jawas. He don't want to talk about it. He don't want to talk about Indiana either. He don't want to talk about Indy. And finally, he was, I guess, given the chance to be in a film of his own, design. And so that film became the film Random Hearts. Have you guys seen that? I saw it. I saw it when it came out. Why not, right? And Sam was like, "Yeah, so he's got an earring, um, and he's got like a fast car, and he wears aviator shades, and he goes around flying everywhere and cheating on his wife. That's his idea of who he wants to be in movies. Not Indiana Jones, not Space Cowboy, Han Solo. It's this guy." And I thought that was a truthful and unique take. The stories that leak out, and they're like, yeah, Harrison Ford saved another person in his chopper in Utah. Maybe that's true. I don't know. Um, I don't know. If I were a big time alpha A-level movie star, I wouldn't be flying around in a helicopter. I just wouldn't. I don't. I think that's whack. Maybe if it was one of those choppers that they have in like the Rambo where they go to Afghanistan. You know what I'm talking about? Those big Soviet style ones. Maybe if I had one of those, right? Or a luxury like it's gold on the inside. But I ain't flying around in no Huey or whatever, and definitely not flying around in a Cessna plane. No, man, hell no. But I don't think that's a problem. Yeah, Airwolf, exactly. Airwolf. What was the name of Airwolf? Oh, Jan Michael Vincent, right? That guy could have been a contender. Poor guy. He could have been a contender. Instead, he had a one-way ticket to Palookaville, I guess. Norm was a big fan of him, but everybody's got their demons, I guess. That was a cool show, though. That was a really cool show. Remember the chopper was inside the volcano? It was Miami Vice, but like for a helicopter. Anyway, let's get back to the book. So the ninth configuration, I gave you a sort of rundown and basic analysis of the plot, right? Regarding Henry, was that the one where he had amnesia? I think. Have you seen the one that Harrison Ford did with what's it? Frantic? Have you seen that one? That's the Polanski film, I think. That one's pretty good. That one's good. I like Harrison Ford. Have you seen seven? Not seven. Is it 7 days and 7 nights? Where he's in a plane crash, right? In the movie. I saw that on like a Saturday afternoon when I was on the sofa and didn't want to move, and I thought it was not bad. Of course, R.I.P. to his co-star. Remember, I think something happened to her. They said she knew about some things. Who knows, right? Um, yeah, the fugitive. Give me back my family. I didn't kill my family. I don't care. He's great in that. We talked about that one. What is it? 6 days and 7 nights. Thank you, Jason. We talked about that one because when we did the Seagal stream, remember that has the same extras in it. It was the same director. It was filmed in Chicago. It looks exactly the same. It's just different story. They should have gotten Seagal to try and find him. I don't care. I like Tommy Lee Jones. Was it worth it? Yeah, it was worth it. If you're strong enough. All right, so no epigraph. The ninth configuration. Listen to some of the language that he uses right here. He says, the mansion. He says, I'm a booming. Let me get my thing here. He says, the mansion was isolated and gothic, massive, trapped in a wood, grotesque. It crouched beneath the stars, under clustered spires like something enormous and deformed, unable to hide, wanting to sin. Its gargoyles grimmed at the forest, pressing in on it thickly all around. For a time, nothing moved. Dawn sifted in. Thin fall sunlight pried at the morning, entombed within the arborescent gloom, and fog curled up from rotted leaves like departing souls, dry and weak. In the breeze, a creaking shutter moaned for Duncan, right? The fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. There's your first Macbeth reference in this, which I didn't look for. That just occurred, right? It says, haunted crow coughed hoarsely in a meadow far away. Then silence, waiting, makes his way to the rooky wood. This is Macbethian, except it's pure Gothic, right? And it's in America. So right away, by the way, one thing that's great about this book is that the exterior location is so ominous. It's so dark. It has this looming ambiance that we're going to have to contrast it like with the interstate of the characters, right? We're going to have some sort of unity and variety. We're going to have to make our way through some sort of juxtaposed like maze, right? And we get that because when we meet the insane inmates, they're funny, right? They have this weird, insane, lighthearted take on what they do from minute to minute, right? Of course, the atmosphere is telling us, the reader, that, things aren't what they say. There's something going on here. I can't imagine someone reading this book at any time and not, knowing from the outset that this is going to be like the setting for some sort of human experimentation, right? That the inmates obviously are the subjects, or, you can count on military intelligence and CIA to make sure that, no, actually, the experts and the doctors are the test subjects, and the insane people are running the asylum, right? It's a sort of, there's a play about that. It's called Marat Sade, avant-garde play. I mean, this is a theater piece about a theater piece, but it's filmed, right? Yeah, this is not a Red Bull. I've been drinking these. I call it Aloha, but that's not what it's called. But it's Hawaiian shaved ice flavor, and it's an energy drink. I drink these because I like the taste. I like the taste, people. It gives you the creepy crawlies. It gives you powerful dreams. But the language. I mean, I admire that. I admire his writing because my presupposition was that this would be basic and styled for a mass audience, right? I don't know why I thought that, but I didn't expect much from William Peter Blatty. And so, I was pleasantly surprised about this. I was really blown away. I mean, that paragraph alone merits kind of poetical exegesis, right? Look at it. I mean, of course, the first sentence of every novel, we've done this with everything we read, every piece of prose. But we're presented with concrete imagery, and we're in it. It's present tense. We're here. We are part of the scene. That's the perspective. We are entering into the dark castle, right? And the imagery is so the language of it is medieval, right? It's almost like Germanic, the word choice, the diction that he uses. Right, Gothic, massive. It's trapped. Listen to the verbs. Trapped, crouched, uh, clustered. What does he say? The gargoyles grinned. I like the alliteration. Gloom. Rotted. Right. I mean, he says. What does he say? He says. Like something else, creaking. Right, creak. You can hear the sounds of the creaking really, and then he brings up Duncan is interesting because um, there's a part in Macbeth when he is walking down the hallway towards Duncan's room in Act One. I don't know about all the plosive. You guys, if you're getting a lot of plosive P's that are popping, because I hear them, and I'm sorry about that because I got this guard on here, but I need to get a new one, I guess, because it's not doing enough. But when Macbeth is walking down the hallway, the dark hallway, right, the dark tunnel, is this a dagger I see before me? Towards Duncan's room, and he's going to violate the king, right? He's going to usurp. He's going to usurp his power. He's going to violate the sanctity of the household. He's supposed to take care of him. He's his kinsman also. When he's walking down that hallway, he says, "What's his line? The very stones prate of my is it presence? The very stones prate. The stones prate, which means that were you guys ever? We've talked about this before, but were you guys ever a teenager in a house with your parents and you were supposed to be in bed and you were like going downstairs? Let's say you were going downstairs and you were going to get a drink from the fridge, but you were supposed to be in bed, and every step you take down the hallway resounds, and you feel like your parents are going to wake up at any time and go, "What are you doing?" That's kind of how I think about it. Of course, he's going to murk the king, so it's a little different. But the way that the sounds echo, and remember in that first Macbeth analysis, I think I brought up that the auditory sense is so important, like to these killers, IRL, because they always bring this up. They always say the moment where they snapped or where they did, the victim was gone, was when they started like being very loud. We'll say that. Bundy in his car. I think Dahmer did that. Son of Sam. So it's not something interior. It's not visual. It's something auditory. It like somehow it creeps into their soul, and we see this right away from with this play, this novel. Right? It reads like a play, and it's a play within a play. Let's see what else. It says we get a description of the house. Of the mansion. Let's skip over that. Let's see. They all line up. I got to sneeze so bad. You guys, do you ever get a sneeze and you think about it and then it goes? Lost it. How embarrassing. That was dramatic. All right, so let's see. On page 17, it says, let's see. Let's see. On page 17, we meet the NASA guy, and he draws them to attention. They're at, they've all gathered, and they do a Roman salute. Later on, they're going to dress in fatigue in the Hugo Boss uniform, and one of the guys will question, "Why are you guys dressed as the former enemy?" And the psychiatrist explains that this is a psychiatric technique that allows patients to role play to deal with what they've been through. So they dress up in the guise of the former enemy, right, or of a kind of archetypal villain, and that allows them to like come to grips with what they've done and what they've been through. Does that make sense? That's how it's explained in the book. I don't really care about the like psychiatric reality of that. but I think it's an interesting idea and probably part of the experimentation. The plot, he describes the plot on page, let's see, 19, and he says here, let's see, can you guess, boys, huh? A psychiatrist. He was suddenly roaring, quivering with uncontrollable rage. That's right, the best in uniform, the greatest fucking psychiatrist since Jung. He pronounced the J. Oh, so he says Jung. He says, now he stood breathing heavily, gathering air. Fucking combat shucking bastards. He's coming to find out if you're really psycho. Groper grinned. His eyes were shining. Isn't that great news, boys? That's the MO. That's the MO for the novel, right? Because the psychiatrist again is coming to figure out whether these guys are faking it or not. And that actually is exposure therapy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Who was that? Who said that? That was Melly. Thank you so much. Yeah, that is the name. Thank you so much. High IQ. We got a high IQ audience of Bazed basement breathalyzers here, you guys. PBR street gang. One of the things that he brings up later, they're doing a Hamlet analysis, or they're discussing Hamlet. And they go through this long sort of exposition. And I'm trying to find it. Let's see. Basically, they pose the question. I'm just going to summarize it here and paraphrase. They pose the question. You know, we discussed this in our Hamlet analysis that I did, right? Is Hamlet faking it in the play? Is he lying, essentially? Is he putting on his insanity, right, where he does the play within the play and then he insults Ophelia, right? Does he break? Does he have a psychic, break within the play because he's been haunted by the ghost of his father, right, who's told him to go on a killing spree, right? And he watches his uncle bed his mother. His best friends are sent essentially to spy on him and they kill him, right? Nothing seems to be going right. Or is it meta? Does he pretend to be insane, right, so that he can say the things that he wants to say without sort of the normal repercussions, right? I mean, that latter part was not a great summary of that. But I will say that I think that the reason that he has the insane part in Hamlet is because Hamlet does neither of those and sort of both. In other words, he experiences a sort of hyper sanity, which means that he realizes all at once when he confronts this ghost of his father, which is an occult spirit, that he needs to do things that he wasn't capable of doing, and he doesn't understand what they mean within the paradigm of his life. What do they mean in terms of his soul, right? If he follows through on vengeance on Claudius, what is that? Is that really going to solve anything? And what will that mean, right? This quintessence of dust. And I think that that is a parallel to this book, right? Because, for one, Kane is unaware of his circumstances. At least we assume he is. But do you understand that he doesn't act insane? Like, he is insane. He's DID MPD. Right? He's totally not in reality. He is living an alter. Yes, he's not a psychiatrist. He's a Marine guy. But they told him this was his mission, and he just went with it. So, in a way, this is the kind of hyper reality that Kurtz experiences, right, in Heart of Darkness and in Apocalypse Now. When Kurtz says that they inoculated these children, right, for polio, and then they came back and they hacked off every arm, and he realized that he needed soldiers who were moral but were able to exercise their primordial instincts to kill without judgment. Remember, he says that. In other words, they're pure. They're like an arrow sent into the enemy lines. They are a weapon. They're pure, but they're not robotic. They are highly intelligent, and they come to grips with exactly what they need to do, and they do it, which is something that um, either sounds nonsensical or sounds like so what. But I think in like the extreme circumstances of what certain people go through in life, like when they're accountable or when, or when their job is like people's lives are either on the line or like they're supposed to be over according to their duty. I think this must be something that's like this is confronting the abyss and the whole existential thing, right? It's a complete spiritual crisis. If they're not strong enough, right? Does that make sense? So, for instance, let's see. They were crying, and he was crying like some grandmother. I wanted to tear my teeth out. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I remember thinking, my God, the genius of that, the will to do that, perfect, complete, crystalline. Those terms, by the way, in that last part of his um, ad-libbed monologue, those are from T.S. Eliot, right? That's from The Hollow Men. So let's see. There's another Hamlet moment here on page. Let's see. This is 131. He says, yes, murmured Kane. He nodded his head. Then he took the TWX from Robinson and stared at its contents. This is like a cable, I guess. It comes over the wire. His orders. His eyes were alive with struggle. Finally, he crumpled the TWX in his hand and went out into the rain again and walked until he disappeared from view. Robinson kept staring into the torrent. His heart was heavy. Kane's recent behavior had been anomalous. It had not gone unwatched. Okay, so he's in Vietnam. This is at the end of his mission. Here's. Let me go back to what happens during his final Phoenix mission. It says, I'm gonna find where this starts, you guys, because this is good. The essence of S side is despair. They're having a philosophical discussion on why a person would sacrifice themselves for someone else. Right. Kane here says, let's see. It says it's concerning the good shepherd, who was willing to lay down his life for his sheep, which is what Kane ends up doing, right? I have a magnifying glass. I'm an old woman. My name's Kathleen Turner. I got this from the shiffer rope. I had to pick it up. Lay down his life for his sheep. Whenever the priest made some trenchant point, Cutshaw applauded. Bravo, he says. And basically here they're talking about when it came time for collection, Cutshaw loudly demanded a nickel. Kane gave him $1. But when the collection basket was thrust at him, Cutshaw held it firmly and poked his nose in it, sniffing furiously. Then he abruptly waved at it. He crumpled the dollar into his pocket. Kane turned his gaze to him as they knelt for the consecration. Cutshaw's hands were clasped before him as he stared up at the altar, his pixie head awash in sunlight, shafting narrowly through stained glass. He looked like a Christmas card sketch of a choir boy. As they walked back up the aisle, Cutshaw took hold of Kane's hand once more outside on the steps. He turned and said simply, I dug it. Then he said in a childlike voice, thank you. And then we learn from Kane's stoic service here, we go into what it says on page 126. And it says, no, now, Cutshaw threw open the door all the way. The new arrival, a Marine Corps lieutenant named Gilman, was sitting on the sofa. This is back at the castle, right? He's like, look at my glass. These are my hunting glasses. I wear them at night. And they have no thing here. He says, no, I'm just wearing these because my head, I don't want to, y'all don't need to know this. My head's hurting. I can feel the pressure outside. It was not cool enough for the way the rain was. And does anybody get that? You know, they say like my bones are hurting when it's going to storm, right? The old people do that. Now I believe that. It doesn't mean anything when you're younger, right? But when you get a little older, in your 40s, when you become a boomer, your bones they start rattling, right? They start rattling when it's going to storm. And I can always tell when it's going to rain because my head starts hurting because of the pressure, right? Okay, so what did you say? I always wanted to wear. Yeah, y'all like my y'all like my karate jacket. This is my relaxation swag. I know this was kind of all over the place, guys. All right, and if we're gonna cut it down in a minute, and we're gonna go on to Exorcist III. I know I'm kind of babbling along, but I thought it would be. That's fine. Who cares? It's Saturday night. Everybody's chilling. Um, everybody's at the everybody's at the homecoming dance or whatever, right? Yeah, when you become a boomer, when you cross like age 41, right? You become a boomer. I was watching something today. What was I watching today? In Lost Boys, like there are all these lines where uh, you can tell that they were topical at the time. And like as a kid, if you saw the movie, you said these phrases. But now that you're older, if you say them, they basically sound like boomer phrases. But you're just like an older Gen X millennial. Like when he says "dead meat," right, or "step on it." Those are phrases that young people like. They aren't aware those phrases exist. And step on it. What do you mean? What do you mean dead meat? They don't know that. And remember that was one of the things that kind of bugged me about Stephen King's writing because he was always throwing those sort of phrases in. But I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. He says, okay, so here comes Kane. I'm just going to read this last part about Kane and what he did, what happened to break him. Okay. Kane's head was lowered. So what happens is at night he goes to sleep, and in his dream state he becomes himself again, and he sleepwalks. He goes off and he does these things because he's a night crawler, and that's one of the things about MK Ultra and Monarch, right? Is that and the idea of the Manchurian Candidate is that you are broken, yes, confronted with a psychic break because of some sort of psychosexual terror, and your brain retreats, and then the alter state is programmed with a phrase or whatever. And by the way, that emergency alert last week, were y'all thinking that? Did you have that in the back of your mind? Not literally, but was that in the back of your mind? Right. Activate candidates. Danger, danger. Have you seen the clip of Kanye talking to that reporter where she asked him this bizarre question? Even for like the situation, it's very bizarre. She's like, "Did you think that Sasquatch and the cuckoo clock were 1983 red, red, red?" And his eyes change. I mean, do you think that that's possible? Do you guys think that's possible? Why not? Because John Marks talks about it in reality in terms of the Manchurian Candidate, right? Candy Jones. It's just the difference is that in this book, there's no indication like he's not a young monarch. He's Phoenix Pro. This seems to me obviously to be part of Phoenix. He's sent off to wreak havoc, right? To hearts and minds, which means to shatter the hearts and minds of the locals, so they have no hope. They're totally demoralized by a sort of phantom presence, and it's this guy, and they don't know that. Um, and he kills a bunch of people in silence. But finally, he ends up taking a head, and it's in his lap. There are a bunch of stories about that very thing happening. If you remember that movie, Dead Presidents, where the guy does that, he collects the heads, or Ears for Beers. That Colonel, that Kurtz was apparently one of the guys that Kurtz in the movie was based on, the Ears for Beers guy. So, he confronts his reality in his dream state, and then he goes back into his altar, and he says, Gilman squinted in the gloom. He came close and noticed, he noticed the wet blood. He noticed the wet blood reeking the grease paint. His camouflage. They covered Kane's face. It followed Kane. I can't even read this, dude. It covered Kane's stare to the jungle floor. It saw the frail and bleeding body of a black pajama-clad Viet Cong. It had no head. You got a Charlie. Remember, Kurtz does that in Apocalypse Now also. Remember, he does that to Chef, right, and puts it in Willard's lap. You got a Charlie. Just a boy. Kane's voice was dreamy. Interesting, dreamy. It's not dreary. It's not. He's gone off into a fugue state, like immediately. He lifted unseeing eyes to Gilman's. He spoke to me, Gilman. Gilman stared uneasily. Kane was partially turned away from him. Are you all right, sir? I cut off his head, and he kept on talking, Gilman. He spoke to me after I killed him. Gilman was alarmed. Come on, sir, let's go. He urged. It's getting light. He told me, this is crazy. He told me I loved him, Kane said dully. Christ, forget about it, Colonel. Gilman's face was close to Kane's. He squeezed his arm with heavy fingers. He was only a boy, said Kane. Then Gilman stared in horror as Kane raised his hands. Cradled in them was the severed head of what appeared to be a 14-year-old boy. See? Gilman stifled a scream. Savagely, he knocked the head out of Kane's hands. It rolled down an incline and finally thumped against a tree. Oh, the onomatopoeia is crazy, right? You can hear that head rolling. Heads will roll. Heads will roll. Eventually, he got Kane back to the base, but when Kane was put to bed, he was still in a trance-like state. A medical orderly recorded the incident, noting that Kane would bear further observation. And it says, let's see. It was pounding the rain. Kane suddenly started, then relaxed. He thought he'd heard a voice from the jungle, a single cry that sounded like Kane. Then he saw the bird taking off from the treetops and remembered the screech of its species. There was an unaccountable trembling of his fingers, a twitching in his bones that had been his companions ever since first he had come to Vietnam, they and the sleeplessness. And when he slept, he was haunted by dreams, chilling nightmares, always forgotten. He tried to remember them, but couldn't. There were even times he would tell himself in a dream that surely this time he would remember, but he never did. Each humid morning's only legacy was sweat and the drone of mosquitoes. Isn't this crazy? Do you like this? I mean, this is enthralling. Like this. I can't believe how every page of this really draws you in. Right? This says, let's see. This is back to page 131. So he's given orders to be a psychiatrist, and he's like, okay. He says we could scrub away the blood. Do you think where we'd find where we've hidden our souls? Is Kane's question. Damn, dude, that is crazy. So after this, right, after this act where they described that when they sent him to Korea first, okay, so Kane, by the way, started off as an aviator. He was a pilot in Korea, and he was shot down behind enemy lines, right? And he was shot down behind enemy lines, and they haunted him, right? And unlike Owen Wilson in Behind Enemy Lines, wow, I'm in Bosnia. Remember that? Unlike that, where he's just trying to survive. In this, they're hunting him, but Kane hunts back, and he kills I think he kills 4 Koreans, and then he kills another 5, right? And what's he say? What did he say? BLA analyzing that book with Death ray laser eyes. Hey, man. Eisenhower's my mother, and my father was an icebox. Um, so, yeah, so he kills a bunch of people, right? And then they realize that he is a perfect, programmed assassin. So when Vietnam pops off, they send him there, and they basically drop him in the jungle, right? That's Cambodia, Captain. They drop him in the jungle, and he takes out a whole bunch of people, like lots of people. But then, of course, it ends with this kid, right? It says, let's see, World War II fighter pilot. This time he even killed 6. It happened again, and he killed 5 more. So headquarters figured he had a talent, and they made him a specialist. They drop him behind the lines on clandestine missions and let him get back as best he could. He always did, and he wasted a lot of the enemy, a lot, with a knife, with his hands, most times with a wire. Oh my God! And it ripped him apart. He was good, a good man, a fine man. We stuck that wire in his hands and said, get him, God and country. It's your duty. But part of him didn't believe it, the good part. That's the part that pulled the plug. Then some computer dropped a stitch and gave the poor bastard a halfway out, a way to find himself without facing his illness, a way to hide from himself, right? A way to wash away the blood, a way to do penance for the killing by curing. So what is interesting about this is that Kane is fully through the looking glass. He has totally stepped into the other side of the mirror, right? And he doesn't know that he's on the other side of the mirror looking out. And when he finally realizes that, he has to go back into the mirror. And that's when he confronts himself, because he realizes who he is and his deeds. And there's nothing to do but to give himself fully, what he thinks is give himself fully, so that this astronaut NASA guy will live. Because the astronaut guy's problem is that he believes fully that there is no point, there's meaninglessness, and that no human being could possibly ever perform a selfless act. Like, he's heard about that, right? But at some point in his psychosis, he thinks that it's all a lie. He's never experienced it, and it's impossible, because human beings are completely selfish beasts, he thinks. So Kane's final thing is to prove him wrong, and he does. And it's crazy, right? Hollywood, Babylon. What are you guys talking about? Mother, Halloween. I like the AFI cover of Halloween. Everybody burning bright. I remember Halloween. Okay, so what are you guys saying in chat before we go on to Exorcist 3? Is there anything else you want to know? For instance, like I wrote down on this page. You can't look. Can you even see that? On this page, basically, some of the notes that I put on this page were Merrill's Marauders. You guys know Merrill's Marauders, right? Early SAS. SEALs were a Vietnam creation, right? That came out of SAS. SAS came out of Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol in World War II, which came out of course, earlier things with guerrilla warfare. But this is total DID. He goes into full DID territory. Let's see. They mentioned the computers, so it's Techno War. This is Michael Aquino, Techno War, of course, right? He broke from them, and then he broke from himself. I've never seen a man so broken up and ripped apart. That's him. That's what he does. Also, at the bottom of the page here, it says, you see, at the start, it was just a pretense. Fell continued. But somewhere on the way back from Nam, it developed into something more, much more. His hatred of the Kane who killed became denial. And in time, the denial became so overwhelming that it totally obliterated Kane's self-identity. He suppressed the Kane who killed and became his better self completely, except when he dreamed. In the conscious state, he was Kane the psychiatrist. And whatever contradicted that belief, he denied and incorporated into his delusionary system. Bro. I mean, I think this is great. This is great writing because it sort of vindicates, of course, in fiction, all right, in literature, but it vindicates all of the things that we've heard about the Dave McGowan stuff. We see this continually in movies, and I was talking with Hesher the other day on TNT Radio. On TNT Radio, you guys check that out. The 540 spot on Thursday was when I was there. We were talking about the serial killer phenomenon, of course, and the news related to that now, which is actually lighter news than the current, geopolitical situation, because there's a bunch of stuff with Dennis Rader, right? BTK, the alleged guy Rex, right? The Gilgo Beach guy, and what's his name in Idaho? That guy, the alleged guy, right? And their communication with each other, their plans, their mass travel, like total psychopathy and like gaining entryway into the systems, right? Mimicking human beings. And we were talking about that, and basically, I don't know. I think it's interesting how that still continues, right? Even with all the stuff that is happening elsewhere that, dominates the news. But it's interesting how these things, like, they go in cycles, and when they dominate, it seems to be because there's nothing, there's no actual invasion. There's nothing outside of ourselves that dominates the news cycle. But I think, I just, it seems obvious to me that, like, with 20 years of the war on terror, right, that in the coming, like, decade, that's one of the things that we'll see a recurrence of that phenomenon, right? A bunch of 60s and 70s style trained people that are coming home and have been here for a little bit, and something happens, and they become like the great white shark, right? Roaming in the sea of the city. That sounds so dark, but it's, I guess it's likely. Yeah, that we're reminded that he has a redeemer complex and he lives in a total fugue state. And yeah, that's about it. The other interesting things about this book, one is that what was I going to say? Oh no, that will bring us to Exorcist III, because the literary allusions run rampant in this film. You guys, first of all, have you seen this film? Have you seen Exorcist III? Who's seen Exorcist One? Who's seen some of the better analyses of Exorcist One and the ties, right? JD talked about that a long time ago. The ties between intelligence and the film. Of course, they used Exorcist One as a psyop, right, with subliminal messaging, and how they put the image of the demon in there, right? I think William Peter Blatty was confirmed intelligence. I don't know if that is confirmed, right? But I think he was. I think he had ties to intelligence, right? And all the stuff that they used to say about, like, when people saw the film, they were puking in the aisles and they were jumping out of windows. They were terrified. Well, I mean, I think that's that's hyperbole, right? But that was the intention, yeah, or the intent. There's our homeboy. Hey, he was down there eating some Wagyu beef. He was eating his Wagyu beef in Baja. Wagyu beef. There's our friend Jethro. The king here. So, yeah. So the image of Pazuzu that, like, pops up in Exorcist One, I think it's 3 times in the film if you've seen Exorcist One, and it really is. It is frightening. It is scary. People like to say now that it's not a scary movie, man, because it's hokey and, like, the fake puking and all that stuff and the head turning around. I mean, I guess. I mean, because we live in, like, total doom scrolling, gore prawn world, IRL 24/7 now. But it's still frightening. It's aesthetic terror, isn't it? I guess maybe it's frightening if you it's a in a religious paradigm. The film is, and it's frightening. It's frightening to me, right? The things that she says, or that the demon says. I think just one more thing about Exorcist One. I think that who was it that said this? Rob Ager in his analysis. I think that his point, which was that when she is possessed, there's a lot of blasphemy. It's obviously blasphemous language, but there's a lot of like sexually charged language, right? Insulting and your mother, all that stuff in hell, right? The thing that the demon says, which is like, can you imagine seeing that in the cinema when it came out? They never said stuff like that. Now it's whatever. But I think that one of the reasons that the when she's possessed that she says those things is because the hidden thing in the film. I think this makes sense, which is that the male character at the beginning of that film, who I guess is the mom's boyfriend, not the dad, but he's like a boyfriend, or is he a psychiatrist? You guys, what is that guy? You hear him say those words at the beginning of the film. It's subtle, but he says it, and she's around, and so the indication, of course, is that he has basically that she has been, that he's a creeper, right? And that this is one of the things that contributed to breaking her mind. And that doesn't mean that the possession part of the film is, that it invalidates it. In fact, that like it compounds it, right? A broken mind, broken spirit, and the things that she says when the demon possesses her in Exorcist One. The language comes from those situations. Am I making sense, you guys? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's very subtle. It's really well done. It's very subtle in the first film. I really am terrified by the first film, honestly. And actually, what scares me more than that is remember when they came out with 2 Exorcist movies that were titled different things, but they had slightly different stories. You remember that? One is Dominion and one is something else. It's got Skarsgård. Those were scary because there's like a scene where he looks and there's like a demon like running fast down a hell hallway at him. You remember that? They find the satanic chapel like underneath the ruins of the church. That I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like the sounds. I don't like the sound editing, like sounds of demonic Cerberus beast barking in hell whenever someone talks. I don't like that. So, Exorcist 3. All right, should we take a little intermission, you guys? How long have we been going? We've we've only been going an hour and a half. I'm gonna go get some more cigarettes from the fridge here. Let's take an intermission, okay? Look, Mersh and Royce take an intermission, right? Speaking of which, before I go on my break, actually, you know what? I can't even reference it because it's too spicy, but they've been very funny lately. Okay. I'm going to go get my goobers. All right, I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Okay? Be right back. Yo, are we back? Let's go. All right, you guys, let's finish this one up strong. Are we back? Hey, everybody get a good did everybody get a good pumpkin spice latte while you had a break? I hope you're having a nice cool and crisp fall so far. Ooh, it's cool and crisp. Sixpence none the richer. Kiss me. I got an email the other day from Starby that said, "Hey, as a longtime platinum member, right, valued member of Starby, come and celebrate the anniversary of the PSL." What the fuck is a PSL? Oh, it's the pumpkin spice latte. Good for 2 hours. Don't miss it. And if you miss it, it costs like $14. But that's okay, you guys. And also, I'm just being ironical, right? What do you say? Sam Neill is a paleontologist. Ultimate evil. Sam Neill, are you guys talking Jurassic Park? Because I've got a surprise for a Jurassic Park analysis. It's probably too early to mention it now, but you should expect a special Dinobots and Jurassic Park analysis with your fave, the queen of this area, Jamie. Jamie, you want to do a Jurassic Park analysis? You want to do a Jurassic Park analysis? So yeah, we're planning on doing that sometime in the future, which will be funny because that book is the movie especially is wild, and it took me a long time to understand. Like it's a lot creepier than you remember it, but it's a great film, right? Life, uh, 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 finds a way. Okay, so yeah. So Exorcist 3. This is William Peter Blatty again. One more time. It skips whatever happened in Exorcist 2 with Richard Burton. Was that Exorcist 2, the heretic, right? And in this one, so what happens is basically that remember that the priest in Exorcist was based apparently on Malachi Martin, right? I'm sure you guys can get me up to date if I'm wrong about that. But we've mentioned before the Malachi Martin, that recording of when he had his radio call in and a certain very high up current member of the congressional body. And I believe that it is this person, right? Called in and said, I'm scared that my brother is possessed. You guys remember that? I think that it is her. San Francisco, folks. It's a shithole here because they're in charge of it. Yeah. So Malachi Martin, Jay has done lots of work on Malachi Martin and astute analysis of his work over the years, of course. And so the third movie begins with the emptiness of kind of a dark street. First, we have a view of the water. A lot of these movies, of course, begin with a kind of God's eye view of the water, like God moves over the face of the waters, right? But because of what happens later, we know that it's actually a spirit of the air, a demon of the air, moving over the water into its to find its, I guess, corporeal body, right? If that's not redundant. You know, that's in The Shining, it's in Lost Boys. It sort of occurs in this. And then we hear like, you know, very obvious like voices and a first person perspective walking down a dark street. And it's in Georgetown, of course. And another thing that I realized about this movie was that usually when they film movies based in like Georgetown or DC, they will actually film them in Richmond because, you know, DC's too busy and they resemble it. But when they get to the part about the Gemini killer, who's the serial killer in this movie, he talks about how he picked up his first victim in Richmond. So that's crazy, right? We did have an actual serial killer a long time ago in the 80s. And there's a scene in not Manhunter. What's the Netflix about the two guys in the FBI thing, right? What's that show called? not Manhunter. What's it called? Anyway, there's a scene where they go to the federal penitentiary, the pen in Richmond, right? And I think they meet up with what's that guy's name? I think it was Elmer Henley. I think it was not related, because in the city of Richmond, one more tangent, okay? In the city of Richmond, if you don't like these tangents, just fast forward. In the city of Richmond, right by the expressway, when I was a kid, they had a pen, the federal pen, built in like I guess sometime in the 1800s, and it like loomed over the highway. It was a skulking, ominous looking building with chains, and it overlooked it, and like it goes deep into your memory and your psyche, and that's where they had the guy. They tore it down because they had like people in actual dungeons, and they replaced it with Fortune 100 headquarters. So anyway, yeah, so it's in Georgetown, and it looks very similar to Richmond, and that's where the guy had his first victim. And then, of course, when you know right away it's Georgetown, it has a particular look. And of course, Georgetown is DC. It's probably kind of far to remind you of this, but when I think Georgetown, right, I think of the two people that I associate most with Georgetown, and that would be who? Who do you guys associate with Georgetown University? The people that I associate with it, of course, because of what we talk about here, would be, of course, how dare you? How dare you? Right, Georgetown and Quigley. Well, they don't really have anything to do with this. I'm just saying that. And but there's a dark street. There's a guy, we don't see him, or a spirit. He's walking down the street, and we see also it's either someone jogging or it's a specter that they put in there, right? Yeah, Jethro, yeah. Bring that, store that one away, right, for 5 minutes, and bring it up again in 5 minutes, because that's relevant. And so we see a guy cross the street, and you're like, what is that? And then we see a guy cross the street again a minute later, but on a different street, and we see a kid, like with a Boys Town shirt on with a rose standing there, and of course we're in a dream state. And then the same boy is on the next corner, and so right away we're questioning, okay, what is this? Are we in the spirit world, asshole? Or what is this? Well, then we sort of go into reality. We see a Georgetown, the crew team, row, 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 on the Potomac. They row right over Colby in his overturned canoe, and then we see the cool hip, pseudo based priest, right? Because he cusses and smokes and all this stuff. And he's walking up, and he sees those steps. He sees those long steps in Exorcist. Right? It's kind of like the tune is kind of Unsolved Mysteries-esque, right? And that's the long, dark stairway to hell, right? And then we see this scene, by the way, of the priest like falling all the way down the stairs. And when I watched it, it seemed so obvious that it was the scene for a stuntman to like show off fully on film, because like stuntmen, there are 3 skills that they have to have like as a baseline. One is falling downstairs. I think the other is like getting hit by a car, and one is, I don't know what there is another one, but anyway, this guy like falls down these stairs so beautifully, right? It's perfect stuntman, very choreographed, but he's really doing it. And I guess then he wakes up, right? And then we see George C. Scott. So George C. Scott is he is the he's a detective in DC, but he's very unique. He's not the grizzled, no nonsense dark detective like in Reptile, right? Instead, he's actually kind of a he's throwing out literary allusions like all over the place. Somebody says, "I'll see you tomorrow," and he goes, "Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow." And then there's a Hamlet reference. There's like 4 references right away when you meet him. And he's in the cop office, and they come to tell him that they found the body of, somebody who was murdered horribly, right? In D.C. He was found in the last place they looked, of course, as Norm says. And it turns out that from the dream sequence, that what'd you say? Yeah, that's right. In the dream sequence, we saw the boy, and it turns out like that in reality that was the victim. And it's weird because when George C. Scott tells the priest in the next scene that he found this boy and how he finds him, it's weird how he tells him because it's like there's a pause at the end of each terrible thing, like to let it sink in, and then he goes further and further and further. He's like, "Yes, we found a body. He was murdered. He was tied up with oars, and he was decapitated, and he had his tongue cut out." I mean, it's like there's like a 2-second pause right between each thing, and you can tell when he says it that I took it basically as that like this guy's life is terrible, right? Because of the things that he has to confront. So there's a gallows humor, and a kind of like irony. I don't know if you guys even thought about that when you watched it, but I think it's important to keep in mind because the state of this character that we're supposed to admire and follow, we're supposed to have like a grip on him as like he's moral, right? He's reliable. And if he's I feel like these characters we're at this point now in film where the characters are they are anti-heroes to the point where we don't care about them anymore. We don't like them. There's nothing to admire. They're drifting over into like not villain territory because at least we can understand that. It's just like just nothingness. I believe in nothing, Lebowski, right? But without irony. I mean that is television and film now, and I think that's where it's headed. So it's kind of interesting to see this movie where there's time taken with the movie. They when you're watching it, if you pay attention to how they react to one another, there's a scene where George C. Scott he's talking to his priest friend, right? And then he's in the hospital, and the next day he's told, "Oh, your friend, the priest, he was decapitated right after you saw him." And we did fingerprint analysis on all of these cups because there's all these cups on this table, and the fingerprints we found a print, and it's different from the print of the murdered priest in the church the other night. So then George C. Scott's like, so it's not one serial killer. We have like what is this? But when he goes in to look at his friend in the priest who's now dead in the hospital bed, and he like tears the thing off the wall because it's been written in blood right on the wall in his blood, Manson style. And it's weird because the camera moves over here and there's like the one guy here and then the other guy's here and George C. Scott's here, and he's like he goes, "When was this?" "This was yesterday." It's odd. It's odd how much time and space there is in the scene. I think that the reason that they did that, the artistic choice in that, it's subtle. This may seem like too esoteric or too, I don't know, whatever. Too woo woo, right? But honestly, I think that is a kind of subconscious, subliminal thing where we are supposed to be uncomfortable, right? But we don't know why we're uncomfortable. And the thing that is going to happen that's going to shatter that is not going to be the same world as The Exorcist, where we get like a barrage of terrible things, right? A total blitz of this girl possessed and her head spinning. It's not going to be like that. There's going to be one thing, and it's going to be a shocker. And that actually is what happens. So basically, what happens in the film is, so we see a priest, and he's like taking confession, and there's a woman, and she's on the other side of the confessional or whatever, and she's they're doing their thing, and then all of a sudden she starts doing Norman Bates' voice, right? And she's like, and then I realized that I just had to kill a lot of people everywhere, and the lake was running rivers of blood. I mean, and the priest is like, he's like, what? And then she goes, like, she starts talking louder, and then his eyes open, and he does a full soy face. And next thing we know, like, we don't see what happens to him, but we see, like, a pool of blood dripping, and we see this, the crucifix weeping, and we see a woman screaming, and it's off stage, but we know that something terrible has happened. And George C's when he goes to investigate, it's funny because there are these two other detectives, and they're kind of like, I don't even know what their names are in the movie. One is like has a nom jacket on, and he's got kind of a ponytail, and the other guy's like kind of like a, I don't know, he's like a Robert Davi kind of character. I guess they're just other detectives, but they're at the confessional, and he thinks he's figured it out because he's like, "Here's what happened. You see, this thing slides right here in the confessional booth, and it's ripped right here. So, what the killer did was they kind of broke this thing here, and then they got into the confessional, and it was ripped. So then they had to reach in and close it halfway, and that's how they stabbed." He stabbed the priest, and it sounds plausible. And then like the nom detective is like, "No, that's not what happened. It was just broken." And it's a weird scene, dude. It's weird. It's funny. It's weirdly funny. And it makes us like care about the characters, right? Also, by the way, so George lives at home with his wife and his daughter. He's also very old, and he's got like a, seems like a good for him, right? He's got those tees up. He's got a young daughter who's like in ballerina school. He obviously cares about her. They don't say much, but he cares about her. She comes in, she gets her milk and her, ballet slippers, and goes off to do her thing. But also, the mother-in-law, Estelle Getty, also, it's not Estelle Getty, but there's a Sophia character that lives in the house with him. Oh, dear. Don't forget your shoes. And we learn in one scene that, so there's one scene where he goes to hang out with his priest buddy, right? This is very random in the movie, and it's kind of at the start. And the priest is like outside on the city street, like smoking a cigarette and like checking his watch. And then we hear siren, and the cop car like speeds up. And George gets out with his coat on, and he's like, the priest is, fussing at him. There was more time spent in the creation of the earth than there was waiting for you to get here, right? It's like, what's this important meeting? Well, they walk in, and there's like a ticket taker, and he's like, official police business, and it's the movies. They go to the movies. It's these, dudes being dudes, right? They go to the cinema, and they go see It's a Wonderful Life, which is like their favorite movie, right? Which, by the way, DPH and I covered that last Christmas, right? Church of the Eternal Logos. So they go to watch the movie. They don't pay for it. The priest is addicted to lemon drops. He needs his sugar. He needs his lemon drops. And where was I even go? Oh, after the movie, they're like, all right, well, I'll see you later. And he's like, no, I can't go home. It's weird because we kind of assume he can't go home because there's something about cheating or something, but that's not what it is. He's like, my mother-in-law. We're having carp tonight. We're having this weird monologue, dude. This is literally in the movie. We're having carp tonight, fish, for dinner. Great. Only problem is, my mother-in-law is making it, and she bought the carp 3 days ago. She wants it fresh. And the fish has been swimming back and forth in my bathtub for 3 days. I'm going to kill the son of a bitch. It's very, very weird, like, that they go this far with sort of character development in this film. But obviously, the symbolism is potent, right? I guess it's a Friday because of the fish. And there's the mother-in-law character that we don't like right away. But she is redeemed in this film. She's okay. So should we skip to what happens with that? All right. So let's make sense of this real quick. So what we learned basically is that these victims are being decapitated, right? In this place, and they all have a name that either begins with a K, or the priest friend. His middle name is K. I don't know why they didn't just make his name, Karl Marx Frank or whatever. They put it as his middle name. Anyway, they all have some sort of relation to the Regan thing, right, from Exorcist 1. And one of the priests is like, well, here's the dealio, yo. There is a priest. He's an actor. His name's Nicol Williamson, great English actor who shares my birthday. And he had a total freak out because he tried to exorcise this demon. And it's the same demon as the Malachi Martin demon from Exorcist 1, right? That's the deal. And the guy, the priest from Exorcist 1 that defenestrated himself, right? He got possessed, took it on himself, jumped out that window. Well, he didn't actually die. Well, he did die. But at the moment of death, that demon, he had to work real hard to revive him. And he went to the loony bin. Somehow he ended up in the insane asylum, right? That is the priest. And that is the priest that George C. Scott knows, right? And he's surprised to see him there because he's been dead. Like, they buried him. But somehow the demon revived this guy's body, and he's, like, being tortured in hell as we speak, right? This is what the guy, the straitjacket guy reveals to us. And so the demon's goal is to, desecrate creation and to make people unbelieve and to slowly, I guess, psyop the city into, like, losing all their beliefs. And so the murders are that's just like the means. That's not even the end goal, right? Yes, I guess it's Pazuzu, right? And it's crazy because it is the priest, right, from Exorcist 1, but he turns into Brad Dourif, right? And then we get the Brad Dourif character who is the demon. And then we learn, so Brad Dourif is straitjacketed in this place, and he's been electroshocked, right? And we learned that this guy was so bad. He was a serial killer or something, and he was so bad in life. He's a Gemini killer. So bad, right, that when he goes to hell, the demons are like, look, we're just going to make you a straight up demon. We're not going to bother with the pitchforking. You're just going to be a demon, and you're going to, like, go possess humans or what. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the overall thing, which is that Pazuzu, his MO, right, and desecration, and that Brad Dourif is there, and he is so good in this role, right? He is straight up, it's very good how he does it. And they use, of course, electroshock to do this. The brain of the priest was dead, and apparently the demon, he does this thing. He argues that, demons can't make life, right? They can't create life. So through this process of mimicry and what is the process? Somebody tell me. Can somebody summarize what he says about that? How did they revive this guy, right? How did they spend 20 years reviving his brain? Because he says that. They basically brought his brain back, I guess, through scientism, enough so that he's locked away in the insane asylum, right, in the bowels, in the labyrinth of this place, and he's in a straitjacket, but he's able to do something externally. So he has a body, a physical body that's his prison. Yes, definitely. Total Skittles, right? But what they can do is, because they're in the loony bin, and of course the poor golden girls are walking around this place, and the Salieri and Amadeus, right? Mediocrity. There's a guy, like, laying in hay. There's a guy, like, with a dog collar on, and there's a guard with a cage on his head, whooping him, right? Because they're there and they are totally out of their minds. Pazuzu can possess those people as agents of chaos, I guess. And they are sent out to be his little demon people in the city, and they have targets, and that's who's doing the murders, and that's why the fingerprints are all different, right? George C. Scott's, jaded Catholic priest friend who smokes cigarettes and reads, what does he read? Maxim magazine or whatever, right? He's cool, man. That dude, George C. Scott's like, what are all these vials next to the bed? What's this liquid? And they're like, it's his blood. And he's like, what are you talking about? Well, when we got here, he'd been drained of all his blood, and there was not a drop, spilled, and it's all in these, hospital like pee cups or whatever. It's real nasty, but that's all his blood. Doesn't look like enough blood to me. But I guess the point is that the killer was like very OCD, right? BTK killer, OCD killer. Not gonna spill a drop of this blood. And he was a vampire, but he was very fastidious. So I guess, right? So he was a shell of a man, and he was vampirized of his multidimensional life energy. Basically, space aliens. What's that reference? Let's take a break. Who am I referencing right now? Don't put the full name. You can put the nickname or who is that? Do you even understand? Tamara. Oh my gosh. Wow, you guys, let's stop for a second. You guys, Tamara Hathaway, right, is right here in our chat. And do you guys know? Do you guys know who this is? This is a VIP, old school VIP OG. And Tamara, I haven't seen you in, what was the last? It was about a year ago. Forget what it was. What was the stream about? But I just thought about it the other day, and now you pop up. So everybody give Tamara a nice hand. Where's Jethro? Is Jethro in here? Jethro needs to be in here because love you, Tamara. It's so good to see you. Thank you for being here. Yes, missed you. And everybody, she has a channel that you click on it right there, and you can subscribe to our friend Tamara. Long time OG, old school, right? Friend from the old days, right? From JD old days. He was talking about that, by the way, I think in the stream last night, right? The old days. Do you guys remember the old days? Do you guys remember you guys talking about Dungeons and Dragons? My daddy was a dungeon master for the whole town. Had a pair of 50-sided dice. Do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember JD's Rand Paul? Well, whether we're talking about the left or the right, what did he say? It's the all-seeing eye, right, that matters. Go back to his old school stream on old school impressions of classic alt people. He does Papa, of course, right? And Rand Paul. Those are classic streams. Yo, shouts out to our homeboy right there. Elias says, hold on, let me get my thing here. Shouts out to our homeboy who drops a fat chat. Yes, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. $10 and says, bro, the horror is ramping up. Love catching streams live. Playback is good, too. Question, would you consider doing an Alice in Chains stream? That music is boss. All right, bro. God bless. Yeah, of course, dude. Would I consider doing an Alice in Chains stream? Of course, man. That's a good call. We should do a stream where we talk about, I just talked about this recently with, you know who doesn't know anything about Alice in Chains? I'm going to put him on blast right here. Guess who? Our friend Maddie, Digital Minefield, a real Cooter Brown. I'm going to put him on blast right here. Doesn't know a thing about Alice in Chains. Doesn't know a thing about the rooster. That's all right. It wasn't his thing. He was born after all that. He was born during the My Chemical Romance phase of nu metal. I'm just joshing, but yeah, he was born after the whole grunge thing. Yeah, dude, I would love to do Alice in Chains, man, because, Rooster, like Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane, was apparently also a Marine Scout sniper in Nam, right? Jerry Cantrell's dad, that's who he wrote Rooster about, right? Here they come to snuff the rooster. Oh, yeah. The whole song is about his experience. And it's true. I think it's true. As far as I know, it's true. Right? Ain't found a way to kill me yet. So yeah, I'd love to do that. Not just that song, of course. I like Alice in Chains. And I love the album Dirt. Yeah, it's cool. R.I.P. to Lane Staley. That was a time and a place that was very specific, and um, you know, if you were there, man, it was cool, right? So I think a lot of it was manufactured, of course, but that's kind of neither here nor there for doing it. So yes, Elias, of course, let's go, buddy. Um, we could do a whole thing on grunge if you guys want to. I wish we could do a thing on Kurt, right, and Courtney, and probe the depths of that, right, and talk about what we think happened with all that. I don't think we can do that because the clips and the films that have come out, right, that I think are probably the most accurate. Um, they're nasty, they're spicy. I think probably. Do you remember when he was on? They said he had OD'd on roofies in Rome. It was 6 months before the last thing, right? When they thought he was dead. I remember that. I think there's something to do with the discovery of, terrible creeper stuff going on, right? You guys heard that? You think that? I think probably the same with Lady Di. I think she came upon something like that, but who knows, right? It could have been whatever. But yeah, that apparently came to light somewhere, and there is that clip of that guy. I won't say his name or whatever, but there's a clip of that dude who says that he was given a bundle to take care of that whole thing, and then he was found on train tracks later, right? But who knows? You said, what did you say? You think he faked it? You think he faked it? I don't think so. I mean, maybe. Who knows, right? People can do that. There was a dude on the, there was a Richmond City councilman in the 80s who faked his death. He was caught. This dude looked exactly like Superfly, like the movie. Like he like purposely looked like that guy, and he was apparently caught like he was running a whole, thing where he was. There were, it was, narcotics involved. He was running it, and he was a city councilman, and then he got caught, and then he faked his own death. Right? He staged like a drowning or something, and then they discovered him later that he was still alive. So when they say that, no, the local things, you can, those are fine. You take part in the local events where you have a ballot. I'm like, it's not different. Yeah, Chris Cornell, my best friend, went to a private concert that Chris Cornell gave at Electric Lady Studios in New York. There were like 5 people there because he's in advertising, and that was like 3 months before his death. What did they say about Chester Bennington? I saw a thing the other day. It's kind of old school. They said Chester Bennington is the son of someone. Who was it, you guys? Who was it that they said? This is like deep lore. This is like saying that Ghani Josh is the guy in the press corps, or that the guy who's coming to save us all a few years ago is the guy they claim died in the plane crash. Love it. Love it. We're just riffing. We're just having fun. Gosh, if you came here later for an Exorcist 3 analysis and you are really mad at this point, don't be mad, man. Just chill out, dude. Right? Everybody needs to chill. Okay? This aggression will not stand, man. Right? This aggression will not stand in the parlance of our times. Everybody needs to take a chill pill, bro. I'm not trying to denigrate the gravity of the thing happening, but we can chill, right? We can chill here. I came up with some great Seinfeld style jokes today. that are relevant to that situation, like real boomer jokes. And I want to share them with you, but I can't because the words used in it. But I think I'm proud of them. All right, how about this? I'll put in a different country name. I'll substitute that. All right, you can imagine that it's one, it's one or any of the countries involved in the thing going on. Let's say, somebody give me a name of a country, a random country that has nothing to do with any of the things going on right now. So we're okay. First person to give me a good country name, and I'll tell this dumb boomer joke. Give me the name of a nation. I can't use that one, kid. I can't even use that one. I can't use Jason. I can't use that because that's the color revs that are happening. Damn, this is hard. I can't use kid. I can't use that one either. All right, let's say okay, Latvia. Yes, good. Let's use Latvia. Okay. All right, here's my sign. Tell me how good this is. This is a Seinfeld style joke. It's not. I don't do a good Seinfeld impression, but just imagine the joke. What's the deal with I stand with Latvia? Why is everybody standing all the time? Why can't we sit? Let's be comfortable sitting. I sit with Latvia. Wouldn't that be a good way to have world peace? And the crowd erupts in boomer canned applause, right? Now think about that. Right. Yes. But would that be a true Jerry style joke? Isn't that like, wouldn't that be in his repertoire? Right? Right? Can't you see that? And actually, after I ruminated, I was ruminating and came up with that. I realized that there is an episode about a guy sitting. Remember the security guard and George buys him the rocking chair? Remember that? Don't stand. You don't have to stand. Norm had that great joke that wasn't actually a joke. I'm going to tell my answering machine joke, right? And I told you guys that I went to see Seinfeld stand up last Christmas with my buddy. uh, yeah, that's a story for another time. It was funny. But it was cool. He's got a movie coming out. He actually directed a movie. And I thought this was a joke, like a riff, but he actually did do a movie, and it's about Pop Tarts. It's about the dudes who invented Pop Tarts, which is right up my alley. That's like total, like that's the IQ that I want to go to see because I love Pop Tarts. People who like Seinfeld, like they get it right, and they're comfortable there, and people who don't like they just don't like it. There's like a clear split, and I understand. I understand. Um, you know, Coke and Pepsi, I guess, or whatever. I don't like Friends, but I can watch it, I guess. People like who don't like The Office, right? They don't. It's like whatever. But that's another like comfortable universe, right? The one thing from the Office American Office that I think was really good was there's one scene where, um, it zooms in on Michael Scott and he's sitting there with his coffee mug and he's tapping on it and he goes, I don't want to work. I just want to tap on my cup all day. And that like it sounds so stupid, but that is like that's brilliant. That was really good. That was a good like mini segment because that is what like probably a lot of us if we have the wagey jobs, that's probably what we do for like a substantial amount of time. Either that or do George where we play drums with pencils on the desk. That's like 3 hours of your day every day. So, all right. So, look, Exorcist 3. Let's get back to the serious work, and then we'll shut it down for the night. Okay, we've been riffing enough. If you want to support, by the way, I know we're doing just a chill stream here, but if you want to support me, please look at the links that These kangs are dropping right here, and you can also look at the video description, look at the channel description, look at the main page, and scroll over, and you'll see about, and you scroll down, and there it is. And there's also a link now on the main part, right, for info. And you can click any of those. You can support me with super chats right there. We got Dono chat. You can support me with that. You can support me anytime or later. Leave a message. You can write me an email, madmaximalism with 2 X's at gmail.com. Tell me what you think. Tell me your thoughts. Drop me an idea for something to cover. A poem, a novel, a screenplay, song, music analysis, a film, right? Whatever. Yeah, I'll take a look, right? Tamara says, you have my support. Tamara, I know that I have your support because you are a kind person and you have a good heart. And that's rare. I'm serious. That's a very rare quality. It's weird how the internet, it's so impersonal, but sometimes things shine through just in the words people use. And that's, you know, you just, I don't know. You know, in the psychosphere, man, right? But yeah, love you, Tamara. And I'm so glad to see you. All right, so Exorcist III, George C. Scott. What happens is when he confronts Brad Dourif in the in the basement, in the basement of this insane asylum, right? And you have to go through a series of doors to get in. They're electronically controlled. They have a keypad, and the number sequence changes every day. Now that is shown to us to give us a sense of, one, security, right? That these nutcases are like locked up and they can't get out, but also to trick us. Obviously, they show us details like that because we know that the opposite is going to happen. It's kind of like a weird Chekhov's gun, the keypad, right? Also, the fact that the psychiatrist who leads this place and gives the tour to George C. Scott is the classic sort of, you know, almost like a World War II / 50s style psychiatrist who looks like he has an obvious but hidden problem of some kind. Like he's literally this dude. First of all, his office has like Sephiroths and like masks and like he's got a bunch of weird esoteric stuff in it, right? And it's a small place, and he's got ashtrays filled up everywhere. And there's a significant sequence where George C. Scott goes in and the guy like is chain smoking, and when he stubs out his cigarette, he takes like a good 45 seconds to stub this cigarette out, and it won't go out. And George C. Scott is looking at him. You can tell he wants to say something because we want to say something, but at the last minute he stops, and that is like a uncomfortable factor. And this dude, he walks around and he kind of smokes, and he's like, "Yes, well, the inmates are they are assigned to various places, and the keypad changes every day. It's unbreakable. That is the gem. I mean, the guy like never blinks. He is obvious something's wrong with him, right? He's either insane or he's like some sort of Demerol addict, like in Bram Stoker's Dracula. You remember that with Richard E. Grant? Or he is perhaps controlled. And we find out that he actually is. There's something inside him. There's a demon inside of him or communicating with him. He's a TI, right? Because he's in his office and he's got like a legal pad note and he's talking to himself out loud. And when George enters the office, he asks him questions, and they are the exact questions with the answers on that page. So, like, a voice was telling him that this is the script you're supposed to answer with, and you don't get that right away when you watch it, but that's what happens, right? And then when we meet Gemini Killer, and Gemini Killer, by the way, leaves like certain marks. He like decapitates the people. He desecrates them. He does like overtly religious desecration. It's satanic. He like it's supposed to be kind of a Zodiac slash what's his name? Richard Ramirez, right? The Night Stalker. Remember the Night Stalker had that pentagram on his palm, and that's what this dude has, but it's a Zodiac, right? And so Zodiac implies that there's more than just him, right? It's not just him. And we've done a stream on Zodiac, right? they don't get that right away, though, even though George is adept at, understanding symbolism and like literary terminology. But what we get is that when he confronts the Gemini, which is actually he sees the priest who's supposed to be dead. He sees his face, and then he sort of turns into Brad Dourif, right? And we learned that what I've already gone over his MO, right? He's killing off these guys to get to George, and then at one point George like leaves the room. He leaves this little meeting with the nutcase, and then we go through this long sequence of watching this nurse on her night shift like go through the rooms and like hear stuff, right? And we know that the demon is wandering the halls and playing tricks. But she goes into this room, and this doctor is like asleep on a gurney, and he's like, "What's your name? You woke me up on my night sleep. I'm going to make sure that I hold you to account." But he's like, it's very weird. And she's like, "Sorry." And then, of course, Gary, the security guard, like leaves, and we think she's all right. And here's the jump scare. She walks across our view. The camera never changes. She walks across our view, left to right, and she's being like followed immediately by this is terrifying. It is very disturbing. You guys know what I'm talking about here, right? It's very weird and it's very short. It is a person wrapped in like white sheet blankets with the fucking mega clopper scissors at head height, right? And right behind the lady. So we know she's about to lose her head because they're all being decapitated. And we learn from, the quintessential coroner, right? The coroner scene. Do you guys remember, was this coroner like, were they eating cheeseburgers, right? And putting them on top of the bodies? That's what they do in every movie. They put like their food on top of the body. Because this one was weird, and he goes, yeah, George C. Scott's like, "What are these? This is a knife, right? What are these?" And he's like, "Well, these are surgical decapitation clopper scissors. They're solid steel from, from East Germany." And I didn't know that those existed, but basically you have to, force open them, but when you let go, they close with, extra strength to just cut off your head. And obviously someone's gotten a hold of those, and that means that the killer is Jack the Ripper style and, adept at surgery, which would indicate that it would be somebody in the hospital, and that's weird because all the old people are totally insane and they're incapable of leaving. The only thing they're not doing is watching cartoons, which is what they do every single movie in the Looney Bin. They're always watching like Woody Woodpecker, right? They're not doing that in this because it's a little bit more serious. But but the old lady that he meets, that's a good scene because she's catatonic, and she looks at him and she goes, "Have you seen my radio? It was over there." She doesn't blink either. "It was over there. It was my radio. What am I holding? Is it my radio?" And he's like, "It's a fine radio." And she goes, "I know you're not telling the truth because I'm holding the telephone." And there's nothing there. But she's supposed to be, a messenger, basically a vessel. And she tells him, she says, "You're going to be okay. You have a kind face." And so that's good, right? That's a message from the other side through this lady. But it turns out, she's one of the vessels for the murders because the Gemini, Pazuzu, is possessing the insane people. They're perfect for possession because they can come and go from the nut house. And so he gets these like old ladies to go and, kill people. And that's what he does next. So he targets George, and George races home in this old 1990 style cop car. This jalopy, right? Of course, why is that? Why is it a jalopy, you guys? Why is it a basic cop car? Why is it not, supercharged like they are now? Somebody tell me. Because something did do that program. Right. Cops back in 1990 were totally different. It was a different system than now. Right. It all changed when? When everything changed. Right. Which was the big nine. Where every town in this country became a sort of a pseudo, what's the guy's name? Sort of a pseudo brown shirt, black shirt organization, right? I mean, like truly. Yeah, that was a result of Big Nine, right? With the surplus of all the military equipment. Yes. And so they decided, well, we got all this stuff. We'll just give it to all the cops everywhere. Oh, we're giving it away. Of course, that was to militarize the police. So their MO became, instead of keeping the peace, right, it became, enforce the law. So the car that George gets home in, like, has one siren that they put on top of the car, right? And they're like sloppily going into the house. And he goes inside and he's like, oh, it's all right. I got Estelle Getty here. I got my mom. The ballet daughter is back home. We're going to eat lunch. We're going to have a tuna sandwich. And he goes all the way in. Everything's fine. What's wrong? What's wrong? He pulls this, 38 on the family or whatever. And then at the last minute, they're like, oh, we have a guest for lunch, by the way. Who is this lady? She says she's from the hospital. And it's a fucking insane Sophia lady. Like, I imagine that she'd be wearing like a wedding dress, right? Like, Miss Havisham, but like she's like, I'm a nurse with crazy eyes. She's Crazy Eyes Killer. And he's like, no, get her out of here. And she moves quick, man. So this is Pazuzu, like inhabiting this old Miss Havisham, right? And she pulls out those clopper scissors, yes. And the ballerina daughter is sitting right there, and she is like just about to get that head, like very quickly. And who comes to the rescue, right? Never underestimate the cynical Sicilian / New Jersey mother-in-law, okay? Because she grabs that girl's head and she pulls it out of the way right just in time, like reflexes, yeah. And then he full on fights the damn demon in the house. Did they blast her? I think they blast her. This also, by the way, this dispels one of the other archetypes that in movies, which is the useful and brave sort of sidekick sergeant African American enforcement guy in movies, right? With a mustache. Remember, Jay? Remember that whole thing? We talked about that. They all, Bill Duke was the only exception to this. But here we find a guy, he's a young guy, so he's slightly different, but, no mustache, right? And we trust this guy. He's good. The cops then bust. By the way, the guy who drove the cop car takes like 5 minutes to get into the front of the house, which is weird. Yeah, and it's not even really fisticuffs. It's more like she like picks his body up and throws him into a china cabinet or into the she throws him into the Chesterfield, into the Schiffer rope, into the chaise longue. But she has superhuman strength, right? Of course. But I guess she gets blasted. I don't remember what happened at that point, but it's suffice it to say that Pazuzu does all this from his cell, right? So he's stuck in the basement of the insane asylum, just like the original guy he's possessing, the priest, is in the basement of the soul. Because what happened next is, like, when George goes back to the cell, like, eventually the floor opens up and there's a chasm, and like we see the priest come out and he's being like tortured in hell, but he chooses to be there, right? Because he's doing this like to sacrifice himself because the thing isn't over or whatever, and he's trying to fight against possession, I guess, is the way they frame it. But he's in the basement of his soul, right? He's in hell, just like the demon is in the basement of the insane asylum, and George C. Scott ends up like plumbing the depths of his own psyche because he is tested. And it's not as that scene is not as scary, of course, as what they do in a similar movie, which is Poltergeist 2. That's way worse. That is way, way worse. That's about as bad as you can possibly be, right? He is in his temple. The whole fucking man that looks like the. I mean, that guy looks like death, right? He looks like death. And he's got all those people. We're gonna get on the comet Hale Bop, right? And they'll find happiness in hell. They're all screaming. What in the world, dude? That movie bothers me a lot. Which I don't think is like edgy. I mean, I think it's supposed to be like that. But imagine doing that movie. Like the problem is that like it involves younger people and they have to be cast in the movie. And there's no way around the fact that like they're reading the script. That's I don't know. That's some bad stuff. Anyway, please make sure you like the stream, please, guys. Make sure you like it. And afterwards, I would appreciate when we're done if it's sometime you came back and left a comment. Just leave any kind of comment. Algo, right? Thumbs up, sunglasses. Leave me something. Say what's up, right? Shouts out, gang, gang, because it helps the algorithm. Make sure you're subbed. Also to our friend Jerry, Exposing Powerful Lies, DPH, JD, JB, Jamie, all of our peeps out there. Yes. Maddie, Digital Minefield. I'm also going to be back with Jamie. Maybe, I don't know when, but we're going to be doing maybe I won't tell you the topic, but we're going to be doing a cool stream on something different, a different kind of symbolism. It'll be fun. Also, we planned a kind of culmination Spooktober spooky season stream. It'll be JD, Jamie, and I, and we'll be doing Destination Death. That's our theme. We got 4 movies. I won't tell you what the movies are, but it's going to be fun. And that'll be before Halloween. So we were supposed to do Jim Bob tonight. We had to move that, and that will be coming up soon. I'm not quite sure what movie we're going to do. We were going to do NBK, right? Highway 666, right? Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis, Oliver Stone movie. Natural Born Killers, but I don't think we're going to do that one anymore. We'll see. We'll see. Whatever it is, it'll be fine. Yes? Okay, so so the demon basically confronts George C. Scott, and George C. Scott is an unbeliever. And the demon, it's weird because the demon says, "Do you believe?" Right? Do you have faith? Do you believe in God? Of course, you know, the devil knows the scripture, right? But the demon wants something else. He wants total, desecration. But George C. Scott just nothing. Well, then he sort of tortures him psychologically, and then in his psyche, and then finally his body, and he makes him confront himself basically at a literal abyss. And then he does this weird thing. This is disappointing, right? When the detective, in the truly like postmodern American way, is thrown to the ceiling. The world is inverted, right? As above, so below. Thing up is down, right? Down is up. And then he's pinned against the wall, and he says he does believe. And he says, it's well written. He says he believes in death, desecration, worms, creepy crawlies, the dark places, the things that rot, anger, sadness. I mean, it's almost Dantean, right? And how it's written, but it's completely it's dark and totally nihilistic. Because this cop, of course, reminds me of LaVey, right? Well, they said he was a crime scene photographer, and that was the reason for all of his activity. That wasn't the reason, but I'm sure that didn't help. But maybe he got into it because of what he was gonna do. But yeah, he says all that stuff. Yeah, he's profane. And it's funny because you understand. I'm just now getting the notification. You understand why he says those things because of his his calling, right? His code. Um, but and because what's interesting is all of the setup in the earlier part of the film about him being like a humorous, he's likable. He gets along with people. He doesn't seem to take his job that seriously, but he does. Well, that's now, now we see the other side of him, the depth of him, which is that he, carries a heavy burden, right? But the film, I don't know, it's disappointing because instead of asking for his burden to be lifted, right? Just pray to God, man. Pray to Jesus. You got a demon tormenting you, dude. Like pray for St. Michael to come and put a boot up this demon's ass, right? I mean, why not? What you because oh no, life is too bad is the way they always do it. Well, I don't know, whatever. What happens is that he sees his priest friend come out of hell, and he learns that he's fighting. He tells his priest friend, "Fight! You gotta fight! Fight for your soul! Fight for your body!" And then we see the demon like sort of struggling, and then we know that the priest is like trying to get out, and then he says, "Shoot me!" So the moment when he possesses his body, then he shoots him. And now the demon's got to go. And I guess the priest is free, right, from hell. It's how they present it. And then there's a quick resolution scene. And I think they totally left out that scene with the dialogue at the end of Legion, which is the thing about what he thinks about the Big Bang, right? Which is a dark way to resolve his worldview, which is like totally dark and Gnostic. He lives in a prison planet and everything is bad because Satan is trying to put his body of light back together. I mean, that's just right. But it's interesting that it's put in those terms, that Blatty puts it in those terms. There are a bunch of literary allusions within the film, and there are a bunch of cameos within the film that are fun. For instance, there's a scene that's an afterlife scene, and it looks like it's in like Grand Central Terminal, but it reminds you of the painting, right, of the Academy. There's our homeboy right there. Shouts out to Lil Ewok exposing powerful lies live streams. Jerry, y'all love Jerry. We love Jerry around here. We love our Puerto Rico, folks. We love our Puerto Rico. If you haven't seen that clip, you don't know what I'm talking about, but it's funny. We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling. Let me see if I can play that for you. We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling. I'm playing this because it's funny. Right? That's it. It's funny. Jerry, we love you. I'm glad to catch up with you in that stream last night. It's so awesome. You're an astute guy, adept. You have a command of concise understanding of complex subjects. I mean, it's very impressive. You know what else is impressive? This. Listen. Listen again. Did you hear it?
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
I mean, like for real, that dude really is the last, American stand-up comedian. He is, right? Nick Mullins said that basically those rallies, right? 70,000 people minimum, full, right? Everywhere. You go, he comes up, he walks up there, he makes an observation, he comments on observing the observation, and then he riffs on it and it moves on, right? That's basically the method. So it's like, I went to the White House and what's the deal with the faucets and the pressure? I said, I went into the White House and I looked and they didn't have any pressure in the faucets. They need to fix the faucets. It's terrible. It's a bad situation. We need to fix the country. So there's like a moral lesson or whatever, or commentary at the end. But I just think that that's it's a phenomenon, right? If anything. Okay. That's all. All right, so how is Exorcist III resolved, and what are the literary parts, and what do they have to do with the meaning of the film? Well, in one part, there is a spooky, very spooky scene. The Exorcist movies are good at individual images that are stark and they confuse you because there's a scene where they go to visit, I don't know, papal nuncio or whatever at his big desk, and there's supposed to be, statues of like saints right on the either side of the staircase. But when we turn the staircase, the camera moves and we see that there's a statue of like it looks like a cartoon Joker holding a blood dripping dagger with like a disturbing soy slash Momo smile, and then it cuts away real quick, and you're like, "Was that what the fuck?" And then it comes back to it. They shouldn't have cut back to it. It should have been quick, right? And then you'd be disturbed. But then they focus on it, and it's very weird, right? So it's obviously okay. We're entering the region of hell within the mind, and we're confused, like in the eye of the viewer here. But when George gets into that office and sees sees Papa Nunzio, there is a stack of books on the desk, and one of the books is the Anzac Sonata by Jon Stallworthy, which is that's pretty specific and niche for literary allusions. But Blatty wrote this, and I was going to do a full analysis of that poem, but I'll let me just do a quick paraphrase. Basically, Jon Stallworthy was a New Zealand-born poet. He was born in 1914. He was contemporary with Dylan Thomas, who was born in 1914, and he became, they moved to Britain when he was young, and he was a member of the Royal Society and all this stuff. But he's mainly known for his poetic commentary on like the First and Second World War. And Anzac Sonata is a truly modern poem. I mean, it's a lyric poem, but it moves in brief stanzas with sort of repeating choruses. And darkness, what desolation. Again, this is conveying the broken landscape of the psyche and culture, right, post-war. How everything has been broken. A sort of a mini wasteland. Okay, Anzac, yeah, the Anzac Sonata. Anzac, and that's the title of the book, but it's also an individual poem. And I think it's on the Oxford. Just Google it, and it's on the Oxford website if you're interested. But it's good. It's a poem that mirrors the metaphysical parts of this movie. And that gives the movie a sort of a gravitas. That sounds hokey that I just said all that, but it is true. I mean, that's just what the movie is, right? Bill Hicks explains what's Anzac, and we need Toledo in here too, right? She can explain it. Where's DJ? DJ, there you are, right? DJ is from Ayers Rock. Did you guys know that? He's from the actual Ayers Rock. You think the darkness is your friend. I was born in it, raised in it. I did not see the light until I was blind. Shouts out to Jerry because you said that last night. Has been in my mind. So the other thing, the other literary allusion in this film is, of course, at the beginning of the film where George C. Scott, I think it's George, quotes John Donne, our boy John Donne. John Donne, who was known as Jack Donne in his earlier years. We've talked about this in about a year and a half ago. And he became John Donne, who wrote Meditation 17, which is where you get, for whom the bell tolls, right? No man is an island. Right? Every man's death diminishes me because I'm part of the mainland. Therefore, ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. It's kind of a paraphrase. He became the dean of St. Paul's Cathedral. He was, again, a contemporary of Shakespeare, known as a rake and a Jack the Lad when he was young, a man about town. He was popular with he pulled a lot of, he was snogging all over the place. He was snogging all over the place when he was out on the piss. I don't know what that accent was, but he became an establishment guy later, and his poems are. I love his work. I love it. because it's funny how it exists in the same time as Shakespeare, and it's totally unique and different. Right? It's completely different. Within this flea, our two loves mingled be. You remember that? Sonnet, Holy Sonnet 14 is probably my favorite individual poem of all time. Batter my heart, three-person God. But the one that's referenced in this movie is "Death Be Not Proud," and one interesting thing that they sort of imply in the script or in the dialogue, within the scene, is they sort of subvert the meaning of the poem because it's kind of taken out of context. And let me find the poem. Let's see. And I think it's George C. Scott who quotes it. Here it is. This is the last thing we're going to do, you guys. Thank you for being here and putting up with my ranting and raving and my poetry. Listen, we're just doing a little poetry streaming on a Saturday night. Very highbrow, right? Ecstasy. My Paul says, yours doth temperately keep time and makes its healthful music. It is not madness, I but it bring me to the test. All right. Death be not proud, dude. I'm sorry, y'all. There you go. 170, there we go. Give me just a second. It's all right, we can have some dead air. Death be not proud. Okay, here we go. Ready? This is our last little segment here. John Donne says, death be not proud, right? Though none have called thee mighty and dreadful. Thing, man, I can't fucking read, dude. Mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkst thou dost overthrow die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure then from thee much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and souls delivery, for thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and dost with poison, war, and sickness dwell, and poppy or charms can make us sleep as well, and better than thy stroke. Why swell'st thou then? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. I mean, okay, so what's happening? Well, it's used out of context in the film because he quotes the first two lines, and it's implying there that death has power in the movie. But actually, what Donne is saying is that death shall die because it can't kill you, right? Because of Christ, right? Death is dead. Death thou shalt die. And the things that he mentions in the poem are it's very much like Hamlet's most famous soliloquy, right? Here are the ways that you can go that seem to be more peaceful than just death itself, right? But they are death. So, for instance, poppies put you to sleep. Yes, the sleep of dreams, right? Charms, war, sickness. Those things are all death, but they are they're contrasted with death as if it's different because it's personified. It's a person here, and it's interesting because he says death, right? Death is proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, but thou art not so. You are not, right? So I think it's interesting that just the fact that this cop in the film, he has a depth where he deals with death every day. That's his job. He's supposed to solve death. The movie begins with this this boys club boy killed in a dream sequence. He is crucified and inverted and decapitated. And he's set against the rowing oars that we see at the beginning. Also, the fly, the kind of hovering over the water here again is to indicate that this demon is a demon of the air, right? Which is what happens in Hereditary, right? When we get what's that demon's name? Paimon. That's why I remember in Hereditary, the mom walks into the room and it was the dead grandmother's room, and like the bed, one post of the bed is inside of the triangle, and the triangle's like pointing out the window to to the northwest. Everything the creepy old woman did was was a I don't know, an obeisance to this demon, right? This jingle demon, Mr. Jingles. But but this demon Pazuzu is intent on just pure destruction, death, desecration, and loss of hope. Right? Hell is not the end. What's the end for this demon is the crushing of your hope. Right? Abandon all hope, you who enter here. And what's wild is that like he kind of does that in the end. That kind of happens in the movie, right? Because the resolution with George C. Scott, he doesn't have hope at the end of the movie. Certainly not at the end of the book. And it's always funny because the cop has to go on. He has to go back to work the next day. Like, this isn't the end. I guess that's why in a lot of these films, it's like, this is my last day. I'm too old for this shit, right? It's always the last day. Shouts out to Mr. Jingle Jangles. I saw that dude in another movie this week. He just popped up. And and by the way, he was the killer in that movie too. Don't have Mr. Jingles over for dinner. Okay, let's end it. The last observation I'll make, which is totally random, is that I noticed again in another movie today a character with an injured left hand. I'm not trying to be schizo about this, but that's been in like 17 of the last movies that I've watched. Remember, it was in Reptile, it was in Lost Boys. Now I can't remember the other ones. And so yes, Left Hand Path. It was in Candyman, Hole in the Hand. It was in The Dark Half. It's in the book The Dark Half. Left hand, Masonic hand, bite the hand that feeds you. But what's the deal with a bitten left hand, huh? Somebody tell me, right? Somebody give me a joke for that. Hamas, why do they have a Spanish name? Right? More like Ha-less. It's not funny at all. I guess it would be Ha menos, but that doesn't hit the ear right. Okay, y'all. That's too much. That was too much. Let's go. Let's tie it up here. Thank you for spending this time with me. While we whittle away our time talking about literature, which is great. I'm glad to be here with you guys. Let's read some donut shots here. Let's see here. Shouts out to let's see who's where's my thing? Yo. What is that, JD? Shouts out to JD. Can't fucking see, y'all. My head has been hurting so bad today that I can't see. My vision is fine. It's probably not, clearly. I'm going blind. That's fine though, right? Milton went blind. Who else? James Joyce went blind. I hope I don't go blind. But you know what? Whatever. Shouts out to JD, right? Shouts out to our homeboy JD. Is that JD? Shouts out to our homeboy JD. Yep, who drops $10 and says, yo, shouts out to JD, our homeboy out there. Love you. Shouts out to first person that letter. He found the tunnels. Dropping $5. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you on Dono. Shouts out to Moldy Apple, $11, no message. Thank you so much, Moldy. I really appreciate you. Love you. Let's see. That was Dono chat, you guys. Let's see. Let's look at the other thing. Doing the manipulating the computer in any way while I'm doing this is I got this thing about it because I know that if I move like slightly in any direction, the whole thing will shut down. Like it's weird how it's like that, right? Um, but no, for real. Like I'm always worried about. I hit a wrong button the other day, and the computer updated when I didn't want it to, and the microphone thing was totally wiped just from moving the mouse. So whatever, man. Let's look at. Okay. That's not there. Let's look at the other ones. Let's see if there's any other support out there. I appreciate you guys so much spending this time with me talking about William Peter Blatty. What the fuck? Oh no, I don't know what that message was. All right, so let's see here. Shouts out to my boy Jason. Appreciate you, Jason. You are king. Love you. Thank you for that $10 PayPal. You are so kind. I appreciate your generosity. You are awesome. Seriously. Shouts out to Buster out there for that dono. Really appreciate you. Let's see. Shouts out to, I got a couple of them this week. Got a big one yesterday. Let me give a shouts out to my homeboy. I don't want to forget anybody because you guys are so kind and generous in this spooky season, right? Listen, I need to be able to afford pumpkins. First time I saw Hillary, she was stuffing them into the carcass of a pumpkin. She's a witch. You guys remember that? If you're old school enough, you remember that one. That's Larry Nichols. All right, shouts out to my homeboy Luke out there. Really appreciate you, Luke, who dropped a big time fat chat, $50 yesterday. Really appreciate you. You are so awesome. Thank you so much. Shouts out to Matt out there, who dropped a big time fat chat. And wants me to cover this a particular song, so I'm going to do that for him. Dropped a $100 fat chat. Thank you so much again, Matt. You are awesome. That's Matt L. Appreciate you. Shouts out to who's this? Shouts out to Robert out there, who the other day dropped a $5 dono for Red Bull funds. I need that. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you out there, homeboy. Let's see. Shouts out to Kira, who supported me the other day. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Shouts out to Dana also. Dana out there, Dana Dubs, who dropped $10. And I really appreciate you out there. Thank you so much. Damn, y'all blowing up. A lot of support out there, and I can't tell you how much that means to me, of course. We had all this war on terror for all this time, right? And it was, the gas and the oil, right? So kind of a, basic dumbass question is like, what's the deal with the high prices? Right? Why? What's the deal? Oh, I guess that's because we're supposed to get the electric vehicles or whatever. I don't know. I don't give a shit. What do you guys say in the chat? I'm sorry, I can't read it because there's too many screens open. Let's see. Somebody. Let me check this one right here. I'm not done yet. Internet's just taking its time. I'm sorry. That's because all the boomers love late night scrolling, so they're all on the bandwidth in the hood, in the neighborhood. Because I'm on a neighborhood hotspot. No, I'm not. But seriously though, because Cyber Polygon. So let's give a shouts out to. Come on, dude, open. Fuck. Let's see. Did I miss anybody? Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate you. Shouts out to iPack Arts, by the way, our homeboy who does the thumbs for JD for Sam Tripoli. He is a great thumb guy for Cotel for Rachel. He does the artwork. Yeah, Kira, thank you for that $5. I hope I got to you. And also, let's see, Evan. Who am I missing? Yeah, dial up, AOL. All right, so last thing before we go, unless I'm missing something. When did you guys first kind of turn the page? I'm interested in this. When did you turn the corner from the internet fucking sucks and is for like nerds to, oh, this is useful, and now all my friends are on the internet? What do you remember the time when that happened? I mean, because I have a specific time. When was that? Especially if you were born like in the last millennium, because you're talking about AOL. Yeah, there's Jerry. Yo, yeah, shouts out to, let's see, who's that? Uh, Shouts out to, is that Bazed? Is that Bazed, Normie? Who's that? Yes, and Real John Con, they sponsored a stream also. We're going to do Perfect Blue and Paprika, I think. We're going to do anime analysis. I know that people have been asking all around for, channels all over the place for a good, significant analysis of some anime films. And so I'm glad they asked for that. I mean, I'm not, an expert on that, but we're going to do as adept an analysis as we can. Also, it's kind of good to get fresh eyes on things that, if you are if you're a person who's attached to a particular like movie or book or just any kind of form, it's good sometimes to get outside, and somebody can give you something that changes you just off the cuff, like the old lady. Like the old lady in The Exorcist 3. You have a kind face. Do you see my radio? Yeah, but we're gonna do those. We're gonna do those soon. I got a bunch of books to cover for people. Starting with my homeboy Matty G out there, who's got sent me a book. I thought that said Golden Eye. Golden Eye was the golden era of film. Golden Eye I love Golden Eye. And the golden eye, golden, golden. Do you know, by the way, Tina Turner, who died recently, do you know who her saxophone player was? It should be obvious. I still believe. Sexy Sax Man. Did you know that? Tina Turner's saxophone player for her band, her live band, was Sexy Sax Man, Tim Capella. I still believe. Did you know that? Also, before I forget, the cameos in Exorcist 3, which are palpable, by the way. One is that when they go into that afterlife sequence that's like Plato's Academy, right? They have close ups of various angels. And one of the angels, of course, is Fabio. He's an angelic man, I suppose, right? I told you guys the story about when Fabio was filming that commercial and he got a bird strike, right? He was on the roller coaster. He was at it was either King's Dominion or Busch Gardens. It was in Virginia. And he was at the top of the oh no, it had to be Busch Gardens because it was Apollo's chariot. Yeah, so he's at the top of the roller coaster and a bird flew straight into his face and like broke his face during the filming of the commercial. And he was so pissed when he got down because his nose was broken, which seems like like that was meant to happen if he's the male model. Like it was kind of like you need to, there's something going on with humility, maybe, I don't know. But he was pissed and he walked away from the commercial and he said, I hate Virginia, it's shit, I'm never coming back. But that was funny because my friend was he was we were kids, but he was an actor in that commercial. He was like 2 cars behind him on the roller coaster. And he said, he came back to school and he was like, yeah, Fabio's blood sprayed on my face at the top of the roller coaster. I was splashed in model blood. And that happened. So Fabio is in the movie and he plays an angel. And the other famous person in this sequence is Jethro. Where are you? We're calling on you, Jethro. We're putting you on the spot. light cigarette is the Angel of Death, who is casting tarot cards for some rando, has black wings. And who is it? Well, who you'd always associate this guy with the Angel of Death. It's NBA superstar Patrick Ewing. Very weird, right? It's not so weird because Georgetown. He went to Georgetown, and it's about Georgetown. But like the Angel of Death and the tarot cards, he cast like the Hangman 3 times or something. But it's weird because when you watch the film, it's obviously supposed to be someone striking, but you don't at first like recognize it as Patrick Ewing. At least I didn't. Is Patrick Ewing into the? Is he into the? Go on, we want peace and unity. Well, he is Jamaican by birth, isn't he? And I'm not saying that Jamaicans are naturally into the tarot digital minefield. I'm not saying that. We love our Puerto Rico. We love our Puerto Rico. Is the live stream down for anyone else? No, we're rolling, bro. You got that hamster wheel, man. You got that AOL. Oh, did anybody answer, by the way, when did the internet turn the corner for you? Because for me, the internet was fake and gray, like well into, I don't know, the 2005 or 6, maybe. Like when AOL came out in the late 90s, like in 99 when I was graduating high school, like they had AIM, and it was cool like for the novelty, right? Like, oh, I'm going to talk to, this girl or whatever. But it wasn't like sweet or anything. It took fucking 45 minutes to get on MTV.com, and everybody said the triple dubs before every, internet location until like 2019, right? I mean, MapQuest was good. You Yahoo'd everything. It wasn't a verb yet. What else? They had, GeoCities, Amazon. Like I bought books from Amazon like since like I don't know, 99 or something like that. And there was other stuff. I could talk to my family in America when I was in Europe. That was cool. I guess like was Facebook, the thing that changed it for the masses because I remember my sister had it because it was only for college people, right? I was already out of college, so then they opened it up to everybody. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Look at this. It was cool for like 2 weeks. Of course, that internet is it's great. It's great here, you guys. It was great going on the sites and finding the truth about stuff, right? Did you know Satan produces the halftime show every year? Yeah, classic stuff. Which, interestingly enough, like that's what the internet really was back in the day. Was uh, conspiracy related stuff. That was like 95% of the internet, right? I remember in grad school, like looking up the plot analysis of Lost, the television show, and that was like awesome for some reason. But AOL was not, it had that thing about like you're on there and then your mom picks up the phone and you're cut off and you yell downstairs. And like that like wasn't cool, really. Right. It was annoying. And it took 30 minutes to get on it. And it was whatever, right? LimeWire was cool, right? LimeWire was good. When I got my one of my first like real job, my first real job, really. They were like, "Why weren't you at the meeting?" And I was like, "Well, you didn't tell anybody." And they were like, "It was in your email." And I was like, "Well, it wasn't in my box. There was no letter." Because like, if it was a real letter, it was important. If it was an email, it was just like whatever. But that was the moment that everything flipped, and the real letters didn't matter anymore, and the important things were in email. That's not a cool story, bro. I'm gonna. Who gives the fuck? I'm sorry, y'all. We're just riffing. You know what? Very last thing. If we could do anything on the internet, what would be the coolest thing to do? I think would be to be able to play like any music publicly, right? Like if I could put on, if I catch you up on my block, I'm gonna go pop, pop. Don't want no beef. If I could play that Usher remix, that would be cool, but that ain't gonna happen, right? But we do have our homeboy Rooks G, right, who fills in that vacuum, yes, and provides us some jungle, straight jungle. Let's go. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you for coming by for this wild, rambling, meandering maze of an analysis, and that's fine, right? If you want a brief, concise analysis of these two works, I'm thinking about doing an add-on thing. And shouts out to Jim Bob and shouts out to Chase, Chasey Haggard, right? Because they were both, they both brought this up, and DPH. I might start doing like putting videos up. The reason I don't have videos is because one, we do it live, but also because like there's a whole tab of videos that's before live. So if somebody goes to the channel, they're gonna think that, oh, he's just got one video until I have a substantial number of videos, and that annoys me. But I might start doing like brief segments where I have a concise analysis of the main points of works. Do you guys, if you guys would like that, if you think that would be cool or good in any way, then put it in the comments afterwards. Let me know, because I think, especially for like what we just did, right? Instead of sifting through later 3 hours, even though it's cool, we want you to be with us. If you're just interested in the work, you might like that, right? Otherwise, please go back and look at the streams. I tag them with stuff. Go to my playlists. We've covered a lot of work here, you guys, and I'm pretty exhausted. I mean, it's fun, but it's brain work, right? And we have fun, but I don't know. We live in serious times where there's a lot of shit, and that ain't no game. So I think it's important to have fun. So very last thing, MySpace was cool. Bill Hicks says, yeah. I didn't have MySpace, but I think it was a cool thing that people had that. But I was still kind of at the point where I was like, I just don't give a fuck. But I liked that it was cool. And obviously it was way better than a lot of the other things that have come out. Twitter for me was like 2020. Twitter was, you had to have it, right? Because of what was happening. And if you have it now, of course, whatever. I just personally, I don't, whatever, Shouts out to Kim out there. Shouts out to Maddie, of course. He just dropped a message. And what was I going to say? Very last thing. Very last thing is I'm enjoying these flashbacks. Thank you, Bill Hicks. I'm a reminiscer. We do a little reminiscing here. I think it's important because the past is prologue, right? Jason says, list all your favorite things, right? Your favorite things. What did you say? Favorite things. Mine peeps. Good stuff. Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being active tonight. I can't fucking. My head hurts so bad I can't see. So last thing is that we will be back. I'm sorry for the cussing. The affiliates won't like that. Yeah, I'm a romantic fellow. Right. I'm a romantic fellow. I mean, a dude who likes lacrosse, right, and chilling with the homeboys, but is able to quote, stanzas of Lord Byron. I think that makes you a romantic fellow, I guess. So yeah, we'll be back with at some point we want to do H.G. Wells, because War of the Worlds. I read War of the Worlds, and Jamie, you want to do Island to Dr. Moreau? Yeah, it would be great if we got JD to do Wells with us, because he knows H.G. Wells content and analysis really better than anyone, I think, and can speak to future shocks, maladaptive process. So that would be good. Let JD know, right? Say, hey, yo, you should do a H.G. Wells analysis, right? I mean, you don't have to like blitz or anything, just, whatever. And the other thing I'll be back with is what else? Something else up soon. I don't know. I got something else on the way. So that's about it, you guys. I love y'all. Thank you so much for being here. I hope everybody is having a great spooky season. It's great to night stream with you guys and chill on a Saturday night. We're grown ass people. Love being with y'all. Right? Spending some internet fellowship time with y'all. Was it worth it? Yeah, it was worth it. If you're strong enough. All right. Everybody keep on living out there, LIVIN, and to take it away, to play us out. What does that mean, to play us out? What does that mean? All right. I'll write it, and we'll do it live. All right, go. Fucking thing sucks. To play us out, you guys, is Rooks G with Cyberliminal. Please go to his socials and check out his song that I think he's releasing tomorrow, his new one, ROOXG, our homeboy. Here you go. To play us out, here's Rooks G and a cut off his older EP. Yo, special bonus if you stuck around for the after show. I found like 12 chapters of my novel, okay? So if you would like me to get into that and to share that with you guys as a special, let me know. Let me know in the comments afterwards, okay? Peace. Love you.
So, yeah.